Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Massachusetts. Welcome back to the U.S. Welcome to the Grand Champion Tournament, where today we're going to be taking a look at the results of the third heat. It took a little longer to put this video up than normal, not so much because of the video itself, but because, I guess it was kind of because of the video itself. I wanted to record this while I was on a work trip in Europe, and I was not able to. There was no time, and I was exhausted and jet-lagged, so here we are. Hours before I disappear on a week-long vacation, very sweaty and itchy, and running through this video as best I can. So I don't know that all of this is going to be recorded here. I might record some of this after we arrive because I don't want to hold things up too long. But the plan for this video, we're going to talk the results of Heat 3. Then we're going to get into the current scores in our prediction brackets. And then we're going to get into the matches that are up for Heat 4, which some folks have already started voting on. You can still vote on those at challenge.com/grand_champion_2. And also, if you are part of the prediction brackets, you want to join the prediction brackets, you need to head to challenge.com/grand_champion_3 to get those predictions in. You currently have about, from the time of recording, a little under 2 weeks to get those wrapped up if you have not done so already. While you're at it, you should head over to challenge.com/grand_champion_4. You've got about 8 weeks before that one is locked in, but if you want to get in on it early, then now's a great time. All the links are included there. If you look at the attachments, if there's any of these games that you're unfamiliar with, you can check the attachments for each match, and it'll show you all of the relevant links for each of those games. So without further ado, let's get into the votes. So we have 65 matches to look. 65 matches. I'm just like, wait, what? Because it's 128 games, well, 130 games, but it's 65 matches. And I say 65 because we've had a tie from the very first heat that I am proud to say is finally resolved. Shadowgate versus Heretic Shadow of the Serpent Rider is no longer a tie, with Heretic Shadow of the Serpent Rider winning with 54% of the vote, which means it will go up against Nintendo Land in round 2, which means that the entire Legendary Conference is now ready to go, and we won't be getting back into that until October. So following from that, we actually do have our 64 matches in Heat 3. We have no remaining ties from Heat 1. There weren't any in Heat 2, so let's get to it. So first up, we had Pokken Tournament versus BCV Battle Construction Vehicles, with Pokken Tournament winning with 75% of the vote. Doesn't surprise me super much. Both were kind of one-offs, and the Pokken one, I mean, it could have gone either way, really. We also have Mega Man Gold Empire versus Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. Triple Trouble 16-bit winning with 63% of the vote. I could have also seen that one going either way. Gold Empire was a little bit awkward of a Let's Play because we didn't understand the language that the game was in, and it was a little jankier than trying to, muscle our way through Rockboard. So Pokken Tournament and Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit will be facing off in the next round. After that, we have Tails Adventure versus Super Hang-On, with Tails Adventure winning with 100% of the vote. Clean sweep. Similarly, in the match after that, we have Resident Evil 7 Biohazard versus Night Striker, with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard with 100% of the vote. So Tails Adventure and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard going up in the next round against one another. Neither of those surprised me. Franchise play entries, I feel, are probably generally going to do well, and especially up against like one-offs. After that, we have Madden NFL 17 versus Hylix, with Hylix winning with 75% of the vote. Doesn't surprise me at all. I kind of expected it to do even better than that, to be dead honest, but apparently a few of you enjoy the pain of me getting my shit rocked over and over again in a Madden NFL game. We also have Mega Man X Command Mission versus Pokemon Violet. Pokemon Violet winning with 75% of the vote. I was a little surprised with this one. I kind of figured Command Mission would have at least made it closer, but I guess a 100% run, a living Pokedex run of Pokemon Violet and its DLC wound up scratching that itch for folks. I'm going to be a little less expressive in this one. I'm trying to hold this with my right hand because my left wrist is still kind of messed up, and I don't have it covered at the moment, so rather than showing that to the camera a bunch, my left hand is going to be doing mouse stuff on the sides. So hopefully I'll be able to keep my focus and just do this. The problem is it's very warm, which gets me very sweaty, and when I get sweaty, I get itchy. So this will be fun. Hylics and Pokemon Violet going up against each other in the next round. We have Sesame Street 123 versus Hard Space Shipbreaker. Sesame Street 123 winning with 63% of the vote. It was a funny Let's Play. That doesn't surprise me at all. We also have ARMS versus Super Locomotive, with ARMS winning with 75% of the vote. I think having Dustin in a Let's Play is always... Actually, both of these are Dustin Let's Plays now that I think about it, because we had Sesame Street 123 was an empty video game nerd one, and Dustin was around for ARMS. So they will be going up against each other in the next round. We have Mighty Number 9 versus Mario Party 7, with Mighty Number 9 winning with 75% of the vote. That one kind of makes sense. The Mario Party VODs, even you know, they're generally very good, but they're a dense watch. You know, it's pretty time consuming to get through one game. And Mighty Number 9 was like a fucking ride. There was a lot going on there, including some wild bugs in the game. So like on top of the history of it, we did some video essays. There's a lot going on there. Super Castlevania 4 versus Robo Aleste. Super Castlevania winning with 88% of the vote. Not surprising at all there. So Mighty Number 9 versus Super Castlevania 4 in the second round. We had Knuckles the Echidna and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 versus Dave the Diver. Knuckles and Sonic 2 winning with 63% of the vote. That seems about where I would imagine that to wind up. I figured Dave the Diver would do okay, but still not win. We also have Mega Man Zero versus the Ninja Warriors. Mega Man Zero winning with 88% of the vote. Again, pretty expectable outcome there, I think. So Knuckles in Sonic 2 versus Mega Man Zero in the second round. That should be a pretty interesting one, actually. After that, we have Sonic 8-Bit versus Pokemon Scarlet. Sonic the Hedgehog 8-Bit winning with 63% of the vote. This doesn't surprise me. Sonic 8-Bit was a pretty interesting early Supersonic Let's Play entry, and Pokemon Scarlet was kind of a one-off episode, and also one that technically wasn't really Pokemon Scarlet. It's complicated, but yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. That oh my god, my hair. That Sonic 8-Bit wound up winning for that one. We also have Pilot Wings versus Final Fight CD. Pilot Wings winning with 75% of the vote. Not surprising there either. So Sonic 8-Bit versus Pilot Wings in the next round. After that, we have Super Smash Bros. Versus Pikmin. And this is actually our first tie of the third heat. The third heat, sadly, does have ties. So this is 50-50 right now. So this vote will stay open until the end of Heat 4 at least. So if you haven't voted on Super Smash Bros. Versus Pikmin yet, this would be the time to do it. After that, we have Splatoon 2 versus Zone of the Enders HD Edition. It's a long title, and I didn't hover over the thing. Yeah, HD Edition. Splatoon 2 winning with 63% of the vote. And that one will go up against the winner of Super Smash Bros. Versus Pikmin whenever that is decided. That one is... Ooh, I'll have to remember to, I don't know, blur that or something. I don't want to bother people. That one is a little bit of an interesting one. I think Splatoon 2 is basically there for the meme status. I'll be very curious to see how that one does in the next round. I don't think it's going to last long. After that, we have Dark Souls 3 versus Mario Party 6. Dark Souls 3 winning with 63% of the vote. That was Ben playing it many, many years back. Again, I think Mario Party is going to be having an uphill climb for most of this. I don't know if any of them are going to make it out of their initial round. After that, we have Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. That's the Super Nintendo version versus Metal Hellsinger, with Mario RPG winning with 88% of the vote. That does not surprise me at all. So two Ben games are up against each other now for the next round. Dark Souls 3 versus Mario RPG. Then we have Mega Man Extreme versus the original Clay Fighter. Mega Man Extreme winning with 75% of the vote. Doesn't surprise me. Mega Man X6 versus Sewer Shark. Mega Man X6 winning with 88% of the vote. Also does not surprise me. So Mega Man Extreme and Mega Man X6 going up against each other in the next round. Those ones, they didn't come out super close to each other, but they did come out vaguely in the same, like a few years apart. After that, we have Kirby Superstar versus Superstar Surgeon, a sensitive subject. Kirby Superstar sweeping with 100%. Not I'm not surprised it won. I'm surprised that it got 100%. I figured that Superstar Surgeon might have gotten a few votes. Star Fox won versus the Jackbox Party Pack. What is this? 9. Star Fox wins with 63% of the vote, which is interesting because I think only did one video, or did we do? No, I think we did 3 videos for Star Fox 2. I think Star Fox 1 was a one-off. So that should be an interesting one to see how it does. I kind of don't think it's going to do well against Kirby Superstar, but we'll see. But that's the matchup for the next round. We then have Kirby Superstar Stacker versus One Piece Odyssey. Superstar Stacker winning with 88% of the vote. I kind of figured it'd be a little bit closer together because Superstar Stacker was kind of a weird one, but there was some funny shit going on there. And we had Lindsay, which is always a plus. After that, we have Sonic the Hedgehog, the Screensaver, versus Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes wins with 75% of the vote, which is great because I don't have to figure out how to re-describe a screensaver as an entry in a game coverage tournament, so that's great. Kirby Superstar Stacker versus Keep Talking Nobody Explodes in the next round. We have Mega Man Legends versus Alien Isolation. Mega Man Legends winning with 88% of the vote. Again, I kind of figured this one would be a little bit closer, but I did figure Legends would probably win for that one. We also have Final Fantasy VI versus Puyo Puyo Sun. FF6 winning with 100% of the vote, a clean sweep. Apparently, John was just watching those again recently. So Mega Man Legends versus FF6 in the next round, which is great because I don't have to say versus anymore. After that, we have Sonic Crackers versus Earthworm Jim 2. Sonic Crackers mystifyingly wins with 75% of the vote. It was a kind of a memorable short little run there, whereas Earthworm Jim is part of the very, very broad Sega Genesis mini series there. We also have 1-2 Switch versus Populous. 1-2 Switch winning with 75% of the vote. That doesn't surprise me. That shit was hilarious, and there's so many memeable little moments there. So Sonic Crackers versus 1-2 Switch. And the next round, that'll be very interesting. After that, we have Sega Sonic the Hedgehog versus Mia's Pizza. Sega Sonic wins with 100% of the vote. I figured Mia's Pizza would do a little bit there, but no. Clean sweep for Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. Star Fox 2 versus Gain Ground. Star Fox 2 also with 100% of the vote. That one I kind of figured. That was a very special little run there, so that was pretty cool. So Sega Sonic the Hedgehog versus Star Fox 2 in round 2. After that, we have Pokemon Sun and Moon Special Demo Version versus Castle Crashers, and those are actually still tied. That is our second tie of the third heat. That's an interesting one. But yeah, if you haven't voted on that, then feel free to jump in on those. We also have Sonic Jam versus Bonanza Brothers. Sonic Jam wins with 100% of the vote. That makes sense. So Sonic Jam will go up against the winner of Pokemon Sun and Moon Special Demo Version versus or Castle Crashers, whichever one of those winds up winning. We then have Sonic Dreams Collection versus Mario Party 5. Sonic Dreams Collection wins with 75% of the vote. That one was a fucking ridiculous run. By run, I say it's one video. It's like a half-hour video, I think. Fucking crazy game. One of the most memorable ones. I still remember very large portions of that, despite it being over a decade ago now. There's still some Sonic celebratory stuff coming since we just passed the 10th anniversary of the Supersonic Let's Play, and I had all this work shit going on, so I had to postpone a couple plans I had, but they will be coming. After that, we have the Jackbox Party Pack 4 versus Sonic and the Fallen Star. Those are also tied right now, 50-50 between the two of those. So whichever one wins that will be going up against Sonic Dreams Collection in round 2. After that, we have Tails Sky Patrol versus Phantasy Star 2. Sky Patrol wins with 100% of the vote. We also have Sonic Labyrinth versus Elemental Master. Sonic Labyrinth also wins with 100% of the vote. So Tails Sky Patrol versus Sonic Labyrinth in the next round. Two very odd little Game Gear games in the Sonic franchise are going to go head-to-head. That should be an interesting one to see. After that, we have Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, the Genesis version, versus B-Livery, and Sonic Spinball wins with 100% of the vote. I would have been absolutely flabbergasted if B-Livery got even one vote. because it's one of the very few games on this entire list that we essentially didn't play at all. We played seconds of it, so that makes sense. We also have The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD versus Mario Tennis Aces. Twilight Princess HD wins with 88% of the vote. That makes perfect sense to me. Sonic Spinball versus Twilight Princess HD in the next round. We have Mega Man Legends 2 versus Digimon World Next Order. Mega Man Legends 2 wins with 75% of the vote. I kind of figured Digimon World was actually going to do a little bit better than this, but perhaps the power of a series that mostly included Ben and Lindsay is going to be in a pretty good position for climbing the ladder. We also have Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap versus Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers. Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap wins with 100% of the vote. I kind of figured that would probably be the case, like literally with the 100%, just because games that we only played during marathon streams, if it's not 100%, I feel like aren't going to do amazing. But yeah, so Legends 2 versus Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap going up against each other in the second round. We have Mega Man and Bass versus the Jackbox Party Pack 10. Mega Man and Bass wins with 75% of the vote. We then have Super Punch-Out versus Rolling Thunder 2 with Super Punch-Out winning 100% of the vote. That was an interesting one. We have a few instances of two different games from franchise plays. Sorry, not franchise plays, from console plays going up against each other, and those could go any given direction. But Mega Man and Bass versus Super Punch-Out in the next round. After that, this one's so interesting. After that, we have Super Mario Run versus Table Tennis for the Magnavox Odyssey, and that one is also a tie. Super Mario Run versus Table Tennis. So if you haven't voted on that, go vote on that. Both of them are just one video, so it's extremely easy to check both of those over the next 2 weeks. We have Sega Sonic Cosmo Fighter Galaxy Patrol versus Spatter, with Galaxy Patrol winning with 88% of the vote. So that one will go up against the winner of Mario Run versus Table Tennis, whichever one ends up with more votes at the end of any given heat. We then have Pokemon Go versus Sonic Origins Plus. Sonic Origins Plus wins with 88% of the vote. That makes perfect sense. We barely touched Pokemon Go, and Origins Plus was definitely a pretty memorable run there. We also have Secret of Mana versus Herzog Zwei. Secret of Mana wins with 100% of the vote. Also a pretty, that makes sense to me. Secret of Mana being a memorable game, and also we did try to get as much in as we could in what little time we had. So Sonic Origins Plus versus Secret of Mana up against each other in the next round. After that, we have the Jackbox Party Pack 3 versus Kirby's Dream Buffet, and Kirby's Dream Buffet wins with 63% of the vote. That should be interesting to see how that does going forward, because that was a mess of a thing. But, it's still there. Flicky versus Crusader of Senti. I assume it's Senti. Flicky wins with 100% of the vote, so Kirby's Dream Buffet versus Flicky in the second round. After that, we have Mega Man Battle and Chase versus Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 4 Golden wins with 88% of the vote. I kind of figured that one would ultimately win over Battle and Chase. I'm very curious to see where the Persona games wind up. Those are both some of my longer streaming-based things, so I'm curious to see how they perform overall. We then had Pokemon Ultra Sun versus Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3, with Ultra Sun winning with 75% of the vote. Despite being a pretty short run, again, I think the Ben and Lindsay tag team situation here is gonna give some of these series a real boost. So Persona 4 Golden versus Pokemon Ultra Sun in the next round. After that, we have Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car versus Streets of Rage 3. Streets of Rage 3 wins with 63% of the vote. This one I figured could have gone either direction, but Streets of Rage 3 winds up winning. One of the rare wins for a console play. Although we also had like Star Fox and Star Fox 2 in here. I wouldn't count Super Punch-Out because that one was console play versus console play, but Streets of Rage 3, moving on. After that, we have Sonic the Fighters versus Deviant P. And Sonic the Fighters wins with 100% of the vote, which means Streets of Rage 3 will go up against Sonic the Fighters in the next round. We then have No Man's Sky versus Special Delivery. No Man's Sky wins with 75% of the vote. Easily one of the most memorable moments on the channel, in my opinion, falling through the map, playing No Man's Sky. I don't know if it was release day, but it's pretty damn close. We also have Chow Adventure versus Mansion of Hidden Souls. Chow Adventure sweeps it, 100% of the vote. I don't know. but No Man's Sky versus Chow Adventure will be happening in the second round. We then have Sonic Drift versus Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie winning with 88% of the vote. Thank you. Sonic Drift was a little bit of an awkward one because it was there's some high tension in that series. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe versus Afterburner 2. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sweeping that one, so we'll be seeing Banjo-Kazooie versus Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the second round. After that, we have Kirby's Dream Land 2 versus Mario Party 3, with Kirby's Dream Land 2 winning with 100% of the vote. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Early Dreamy Let's Play is always going to be a strong one. We also have Contra 3, The Alien Wars versus Lightning Force Quest for the Dark Star. Another set of console plays up against one another. Contra 3 wins with 75% of the vote. So we're going to have Kirby's Dream Land 2 versus Contra 3, The Alien Wars, head-to-head in the next round. After that, we have Blue Sphere versus Shining Force 2. Blue Sphere winning with 63% of the vote. That one kind of makes sense to me. We didn't get very far into Shining Force 2. Oh, damn, I'm going to have to remember to do that again. Fuck. But, yeah, Blue Sphere was... It capped off a very interesting run of Sonic 3 related content in 2016, so that does make sense to me. Mega Man 2.5D versus Hellfire. Mega Man and a half 2.5D. Yeah, totally. Winning with 88% of the vote. So we're gonna get Blue Sphere versus Mega Man 2.5D in the next round. WWE 2K16 versus Neo City Express. WWE wound up winning. I was a little surprised by that. I kind of not that it necessarily won, but that it won by as much as it did. 75% is a pretty big victory there for WWE 2K16. So pay-per-view survives to round 2. After that, we had Mega Man 03 versus Virtua Racing. 03 wins with 88% of the vote. That seemed pretty clear to me, like that was how that was going to go. So WWE 2K16 versus Mega Man 03 in the second round. And our last pair of matches here, we have Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble versus Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Return to Dreamland Deluxe wins with 75% of the vote. That one hurts a little bit because I love Triple Trouble, but if it's all about coverage, I feel like a 4-player D-pad game is always going to have a really big advantage against most other things available there. And the last match, we had Sonic 3D Blast versus Granada. Sonic 3D Blast wins with 100% of the vote, clean sweep, which means Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe versus Sonic 3D Blast in the second round. So reminder, we have 4 ties in Heat 3. We have Super Smash Bros. Versus Pikmin. We have, where did it go? Pokemon Sun and Moon Special Demo Version versus Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers. Holy cow. We have the Jackbox Party Pack 4 versus Sonic and the Fallen Star. And we have Super Mario Run versus Table Tennis. So make sure to cast votes for those if you have not already, as you're doing your Heat 4 votes. But so those are the results. So let's take a look at how the prediction tables are doing. All right, we have our list of predictions and scores and things, and it's interesting. It's still pretty tight so far. It's gonna so for the majority of round 1, I think everybody's gonna stay relatively close together because every single match at least features 2 games that are still available to you in your predictions. I think when we reach round 2, where some people were making predictions based on one or even both games that are not there anymore, and also that the predictions themselves are worth 2 points, I think we're going to start to see a lot more separation. But we are still seeing everybody pretty clustered together for now. You're starting to see some folks kind of stay near the front, stay near the back, but it's still anybody's game. The distance between our first place and our last place of folks who have done predictions for both is 24 points, which is completely surmountable still. And the one that's in that bottom spot doesn't even have the lowest potential score left over. So like it could go any direction. So we had 14 folks who put in predictions for the second bracket, the Chaos Conference. So the 3 folks who didn't are probably not going to do super well going through what's left here, but it is hypothetically possible that any of them could win. This does, of course, that would also depend on doing an analysis of their bracket versus everybody else's bracket to see what would need to happen for that to work, but we'll just leave it at that. So starting from the bottom, we have our 3 participants who did not put predictions for the second bracket, so they are at the bottom at this point just because of how the scoring has gone. At the bottom, we have Spoiler Goblin with 93 points. We have TMNT Fan with 101 points, and Hasty also with 101 points. The potential totals are not great. Obviously, 1398, 1460, 1476, because they cannot get points in the second bracket at this point. So that is going to be kind of the bottom bar for anything that could really happen there. Above that, in 14th place, we have Zim, who has... It's kind of hard to decide because on the one hand, they've moved up from 16th to 14th. On the other hand, it is a slip from second from the bottom to the bottom spot right now. So only one position, though. Either way, though, Zim with 140 points, with 1873 for the potential score remaining. In 13th place, I am still in 13th place, but I'm also now second from the bottom of the active predictions. So things are definitely getting worse for me. I've got 145 points. Above that, with 146 points, we have Pepe in 12th place and Siran in 11th place. The potential score is only 6 points different between each of them. Above that, with 147 points, we have the Gallux in 10th place. And that was a pretty huge jump, actually. That was a pretty decent one, from 15th place to 10th place. That might be the best jump. I think that's the best jump for this. I guess it's tied, actually, with our 9th place, Nanocarp, with 150 points. So the two of them both jumped 5 places from last time to now. And that is the best jump that we've got. Above that, we have Joe Body, also with 150 points, but with a decent amount better of the potential remaining score. So 1847 for Nano, 1890 for Joe Body. In 7th place with 154 points, we have DJ Glaceon with 1941 potential points remaining. We have in 6th place with 157 points, SD Hero. With, let's see, that's not quite the top possible score left, but I think it's the second best, 1959. In 5th place, staying in 5th place from last time, we have C-Dude with 159 points, and just above that, Panda123, also with 159 points, but with 3 more potential points in the long run. Pretty decent jump for Panda, jumping from 7th to 4th place. In 3rd place with 162 points, sliding down from 2nd last time, we have Viral, with the best possible remaining score, 1970 for possible points remaining, and 985 possible correct picks left here. And that is our top remaining thing. So Viral's had the fewest things eliminated in a way that like messes the bracket up further on. In 2nd place, jumping up from 4th, we have Alksprit with 163 points. And in the top spot, still from last time, we have Hoyota with 164 points. So as you can see, the top 3 spots are all 1 point apart. Only 3 points between those and 4th and 5th. Another 2 goes down to 6th. Another 3 goes down to 7th. So, like, it's still anyone's game. It's still pretty tight. And that's where all the predictions are currently at. This is your reminder to head to challenge.com/grand_champion_3. If you want to get your predictions in for the 3rd bracket. Those are going to close on July 17th. Friday, July 17th. So get those in now. Go do them. Don't get left behind. Don't fall out of the rest of the tournament. So let's take a look at the 4th heat. Let's see what games are going up against each other there. Okay, we're back. I am now on vacation, obviously in a different location. My wrist is still not in great shape, so I'm going to not wave that around in front of the camera, but let's get into the games that are in the 4th heat. If you have not voted on these yet, feel free to go to challenge.com/grand_champion_2. You can follow along and you can vote as we go. So first up we have Kirby's Dreamland versus Undertale Yellow. So Kirby's Dream Land, obviously the original Game Boy title for the series, was the first one we did for the Dreamy Let's Play. I think we finished it in 30 minutes. It was a very short run. And then I swung around to it for the Nightmare streams as well. I think that was also a very short, it might have not even been a full stream. It probably would have been like part of a stream, just to do extra mode for that, which is just a harder version of the game. Meanwhile, Undertale Yellow was a game that I streamed a few years back. It is a fan game inspired by the lore of Undertale, and in fact, Arrow Artwork, who is someone who has contributed a whole bunch of art to the D-pad over the years, including, for example, a number of our stream overlays from the earlier days, as well as a bunch of art like the like key art, like the Rattata streams, the Pokemon the Very Best stuff. That is Arrow Artwork. Was an artist and I think also programmer for a bunch of stuff for Undertale Yellow. So that was kind of cool. I've only played through it the one time so far. I do want to at some point go back and do some other routes, but yeah, Kirby's Dream Land versus Undertale Yellow. After that, we have Super Smash Bros. Melee versus Super VHS. Smash Bros. Melee, a game that needs no introduction. It's one that we played for the Dreamy Let's Play, since the Smash Bros. Games are part of that. It was, I believe, our return to the Dreamy Let's Play after playing Breath of the Wild, because we took some time off from that. Then we brought it back, I think, at Christmas, and then continued on through to the end. We had Lindsay there for a chunk of it. I eventually came back and did the Nightmare streams for this as well, in order to 100% the game, which meant every single trophy in the game, which that took a while. Not as long as some other games. But that's one that, I mean, it's Melee. It's easy to spend a lot of time on that and have a good time. On the other side, we have Super VHS, which is how to describe this? It's like a point-and-click adventure of sorts, set in the studio of the Red Letter Media offices. Tons of references to Red Letter Media stuff, Best of the Worst, Half in the Bag, Space Cop, all of their stuff. It was a really interesting experience that I think was a COVID project for somebody. So I only did just the one video for it. I think we did it. I think I might have done it as a stream. I don't remember. But yeah, so Smash Melee versus Super VHS. All right, after that we have Sonic.exe versus Warsong. Sonic.exe is a game we played for the 3000th Let's Play special, since we're still doing our special videos. Somehow I just like clicked my teeth weird. Somehow all the milestones seem to be showing up in the second bracket for some reason. But it originated as a creepypasta that I think was intentionally bad, like intentionally kind of, maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but in the style of Ben Drowned and the like. And then someone went and turned that into a ROM hack. I think it was a ROM hack. I guess it could be an original thing with a separate engine. I'm not really sure there, but we played that as a Halloween special for our 3000th Let's Play. We got, I want to say Denari might have bought us a physical cartridge for it and everything. Very memorable, weird little video there. On the other hand, we have Warsong, one of our Sega Genesis Mini 2 entries. And this one it's so interesting. This one's a tactical RPG in the realm of like, it feels like it fits somewhere between like, it's not quite Fire Emblem or Shining Force. It's almost halfway between those games and like an Advanced Wars, in the sense of like, you've got multiple units that are all in one square and they go up against each other, and you've got like reserves and all of that. But interesting little tactical RPG kind of game there. But yeah, so Sonic.exe versus Warsong. Following that, we have Mega Man Extreme 2 versus Fantasy Zone. Mega Man Extreme 2, we played as part of the Mega Let's Play. And this is a direct follow-up to the first Mega Man Extreme game. Once again, you're fighting like simulated versions of the Mavericks from earlier points in the X series. I feel like this one we didn't like quite as much as the first one. I don't entirely recall why, but it was not an especially long series, I don't think. It's another one where you do play through it twice to get everything. This time around, I think you play through it twice and then a third mode opens up that has all the bosses. If I recall correctly, that's something that the first game didn't have. On the flip side, you have Fantasy Zone, which is a charming little game we played for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. And this one you pilot, I think it's what, Opa Opa? And it at first blush, it feels like your standard side-scrolling shoot 'em up, but you control Opa Opa completely. You can change directions, go the other way. The camera follows you around, so it is a little bit different. It's almost more like Colibri or something, where you're just kind of piloting around doing your own thing. And the match ends when I think you get like 10 enemies, or maybe it's a set amount each time. But once you clear out all of those, you then go to the next stage. Short and sweet. Definitely one of those games that feels like a Master System type title more than a Genesis type title, but still a cute little game. So Mega Man Xtreme 2 versus Fantasy Zone. Then after that we have Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine for the Sega Genesis versus Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. Mean Bean Machine, is one we covered for the Supersonic Let's Play. I think it might have been on the Sega Genesis Mini as well. If you're unfamiliar with it, it is essentially a licensed Puyo Puyo game that also includes like a puzzle mode. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't. That's the Game Gear version. Forget that. There is no puzzle mode. I think there's like a time trial. There's a versus mode as well, but it's a pretty straightforward. It's kind of hard to get into it description-wise, but Puyo Puyo game. It's a memorable enough part of the Sonic franchise as a licensed game that it got brought back in Sonic Mania as the boss encounter of Chemical Plant Zone, which was kind of cute. On the flip side, we had Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, which I don't know much about Warhammer. This is one that Dave streamed, did 2 streams of it. It does look like a very Doom-inspired Warhammer game. Specifically, like I've seen a few of these Warhammer games that Dave's covered, and they all have differing kind of like feels to them, and some are a little bit more in the realm of like your Halo or Mass Effect type shooter. But this one specifically feels very Doom-like. Doom and maybe Quake. So, take that as you will. There's only 2 streams to it, so you can always go and check those out if you're not familiar. But yeah, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine versus Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a weird one. Next up, we have Duolingo versus Ristar. I always go with Ristar. I don't know if that's how it's actually pronounced. Could be Ristar, I don't know. But so Duolingo is another one that's on this list almost more as a technicality because it's not a game. We did cover it for video. It's not a game. It's a language learning app, which sadly has gone down the rabbit hole of large language models and the like. It is now sadly driven mostly by AI. I do not recommend or endorse Duolingo at this point. But I did a video of it, of me taking the first course, or maybe the first couple courses of Japanese. I was originally intending to do like more of it because I did want to learn Japanese, and I just kind of never got into it. Partly because the way that I was recording it was not amazingly conducive to editing and all of that. I think nowadays I've got a better setup that I could do something like that, but I'm not going to do coverage of Duolingo at this point. If there is another like gamified language learning app that's out there, I'm definitely down for trying it though. So I'm open to recommendations if anyone's got any. On the other side, we have Ristar, which primarily I think came from the Sega Genesis Mini, though we also did play it for a couple seconds at the start of like was it a Zelda video? I don't even remember. But we did it for a couple seconds. We were just dicking around off mic. Oh, I guess it was on mic. We were digging around before we started recording something, and there's a few seconds of it that made its way into a video. We didn't really count that one. We probably should have, but now that would throw off all the numbers, so never mind. Fun platforming game. I think it was originally called... also, fun little silly fact, because I think Ristar was a Sega-developed game, and I want to say it was originally... Feel the Rabbit, like Feel as the name, the rabbit, in the same way of Sonic the Hedgehog. He's going to grab stuff with his ears, but it's also interesting that it's Feel the Rabbit when later Sega would produce the Rub Rabbits and Feel the Magic games for the DS. That's kind of fun. But yeah, fun platforming game, very short, but still, an enjoyable time. Amazing soundtrack. Love the soundtrack on that one. And yeah, so two little kind of one-offs there, Duolingo versus Ristar. After that, we have Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine for the Game Gear versus Mega Man Star Force 3 Red Joker. So, Mean Bean Machine for the 8-bit is mostly the same game as the Genesis version. If anything, it's actually got more features to it, which I find fascinating. It does still have its one-player story mode, but it also has a puzzle mode. I don't know if it's called puzzle mode, but it's essentially a puzzle mode. You get presented with a handful of challenges that you have to clear using your Puyo Puyo blocks. Are they just called Puyo? In some cases, you have a pretty firm, like, you have to do this within a certain number of things or it can't be done. In other ones, it's just like, good luck, get at it, see how you do. But it was a fun puzzle mode. That was most of the focus for that one. And on the flip side, we have Mega Man Star Force 3 Red Joker, which technically we're not done with yet. We're in the post game. We're quite deep into it, but we have a little bit left to go. It's one that Jeff and I have been playing off and on for a few years now. Obviously, we have our voice-acted bits that we include in there, which has been a highlight of the Battle Network and Star Force games from Battle Network 6 onward. They've proven very popular, too, so, hopefully people keep watching that as we wrap up that series. I'm sad to see it go, because we're on the last one, so... but yeah, that's one. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend checking that one out. There's a link in the description. And yeah, so Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine for Game Gear versus Mega Man Star Force 3 Red Joker. Following that, we have Sonic Adventure versus Mario Golf Super Rush. So Sonic Adventure is kind of a weird one because we're like half actually playing Sonic Adventure, by which I mean, so we didn't have any luck getting the PlayStation to function correctly for recording. So what we opted for was the PlayStation Network download of Sonic Adventure, which is a little bit tricky because what essentially happens there is Sonic Adventure for the digital storefronts like PlayStation Network are essentially Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut with the Director's Cut material removed and then separated out as DLC. So the visual look is the same as the Director's Cut as you would have gotten on the GameCube. I think it's even like made into like an HD, upscale kind of thing. Like it's improved in various ways with that, but it's essentially gameplay-wise, it's still Sonic Adventure. So we did that as part of the Supersonic Let's Play, as well as for, I want to say Sonic Weekathon 3. I think that was Sonic Weekathon 3 Adventure, which was Adventure, Adventure 2, Heroes, and then I think Sonic Frontiers, because that was new at the time. And yeah, so that one, I mean, I am a big fan of Sonic Adventure. I like Sonic Adventure 2 better, but I do like what Sonic Adventure does with its story mode. Being able to have all these storylines kind of interweaving through each other and all of that to build a bigger story. I thought that was very cool. And we played that for a while on the channel for some time, probably in 2017, I think. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, and it's off to the side over there. On the flip side, we have Mario Golf Super Rush, which is a game that we played as part of the D-Pad Supersoft Extra Life charity marathon stream back in 2022. It was our Extra Life thing where Jeff was running essentially a Mario Sports tournament among all of us that were there. And so this was our Mario Golf entry. It was an interesting one. I like the idea of having a more Mario-ified golf experience, like in the sense of like Mario Kart or Mario Tennis, where it's like, what do we do to add something to Mario Golf to make it more directly competitive? And so running around having abilities and hitting each other and like all golfing at once it's a fun aspect to it. I like that. We only did the one time. We'll have to come back around to it at some point, but yeah, so Sonic Adventure versus Mario Golf Super Rush. All right, after that we have Kirby Planet Robobot versus the Jackbox Party Pack 1. Kirby Planet Robobot was, it might have been the first game to kind of go out of order for the Dreamy Let's Play, because it came out while we were actively playing stuff. We jumped into it pretty early. We played through, I think, the whole thing in one go. We came back around to it much later to do the Meta Nightmare, might have been Meta Nightmare Ultra or something mode. in the game and discovered a really interesting bug that it required us to delete and re-download the game. So that was a good time. I haven't gotten back around to that in Nightmare streams yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I actually really did like Planet Robobot. It was one that we had a bunch of people around for. It was a great kind of twist on things. Lots of interesting returning characters who we haven't seen in a very long time. So that was a good time. The Jackbox Party Pack was one that we played for Jackathon. We did not play Party Pack 1 or 2 at all prior to Jackathon. And the sliding scale of quality is all over the place here because you have the classic You Don't Know Jack, which always a banger. Can't go wrong with that. It had Drawful, which I've never been huge on Drawful, but it did set the stage for a lot of other art games for party packs. There was Fibbage XL. Fibbage is another really good one and kind of set the stage for... Fibbage and Quiplash occupy a very similar space, in my opinion. And this kind of laid the groundwork for that to be a recurring thing there. Then things started to get a little bit rough, because then you have Lie Swatter, which kind of is just a derivative from You Don't Know Jack. It's a little weird. It's essentially just a bunch of true or false type questions, and even ends in what essentially amounts to like a dis or dat, or what was the last round of You Don't Know Jack called? Jack Attack. Felt very Jack Attack like. And then to close it out, you have Word Spud, which might be the worst game in any Jackbox Party Pack. Barely a game. You have a word. Everyone tries to put a word after it, like a compound word. People vote, and then the word goes in, and then the second half is now on its own, and someone has to vote for that and choose a new one, and it just becomes a chain of partial compound words. It's very strange and honestly really boring. But maybe our reactions to it made it worthwhile. So Jesus Christ. Kirby Planet Robobot versus the Jackbox Party Pack. Then we have Earthbound versus Sonic Frontiers. Earthbound, another game that basically does not need an introduction. We played it as part of, I believe, the Super NES Classic Edition. I really want to go back and play all three Mother games at some point as a series. We just don't have time right now. But always charming to get in there and do that. It's a game that you can never really play enough of. Oh my god, my mustache is doing something weird there. It's a game you can never really get enough of for such a short bite of it, but it was fun to take a look at. And then on the other side, we have Sonic Frontiers, which we played, I think, like twice in really quick succession. The first one was not quick. We played it for a very long time. It had a bunch of DLC. And then right as we wrapped things up, including that awful King Coco trial thing that took like 5 hours, I then wound up playing it as the final piece of Sonic Weekathon 3, like I mentioned earlier. I'm trying to remember if I was 100%ing it or what, but I think I was. And I want to say it was like 8 hours. It wasn't actually all that bad in the end because I actually knew what I was doing this time and I wasn't digging around as much. But yeah, interesting game. I don't know how I feel about it in hindsight. I'm glad Sonic got a new game because it felt like forever since we got a 3D Sonic game. I thought that the overworld was kind of aimless, and the stages being like little dugout chunks of the game didn't feel great either. I really miss Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2, man. And even Heroes. Even Shadow, to a certain extent. And even a little tiny piece of me, Sonic 06. But who knows? There's apparently a sequel in the works. But it was an interesting time. I know Peter was there for a bunch of it. But yeah, we got two playlists there if you want to check them out. Earthbound versus Sonic Frontiers. Both kind of games that have like existential threats to the planet as the final thing, now that I think about it. Formless existential things. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Then we have Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards versus Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Kirby 64 is the kind of finale of the... Oh no, I almost was about to just from the hip throughout the name of the director, and I lost. It was Shinichi Shimamura. I might be entirely making that up. But so the Dark Matter trilogy, Kirby's Dream Land 2, 3, and Kirby 64, all form kind of an arc of recurring characters and motifs and all of that. They're the ones that have like the animal buddies and kind of ability blending that really doesn't come back till much later in the series. It's a lot more slow and deliberately paced than the others. It might literally be the slowest Kirby game at the end of the day. But it's fun to kind of get back into that one. That was one that I grew up with, so it was nice to get in there. We had a bunch of us there for the Dreamy Let's Play, and I believe I've already covered it for Nightmare in the Dreamy Let's Play. I would have had to by now, since I'm all the way up to like the Wii era. But yeah, definitely a strange one. It's sort of a shame we didn't get more like that for a very long time, but them's the breaks. And then on the other side, we have Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. This is one that I played as part of Donkeython and Donkeython Returns both times. I mean, it's probably my least favorite of the trilogy both times, of the original like Super Nintendo trilogy of Donkey Kong Country games. I do like it more than Donkey Kong Country Returns, but it's got its charms. I just feel like I don't know, the aesthetic that 1 and 2 have, I really like a lot, and then I think 3 kind of lost some of that. It's not bad, it's just different. I don't know. I'm a little up in the air on it, but I don't know. I had fun speedrunning it twice. I'm going to do it again probably pretty soon. So, yeah. Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, versus, oh my god, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Holy shit. All right, next up we have Snipperclips versus Outrunners. Snipperclips is a strange little Switch game that it might have been a release title. I think it was. And it's a game where you play as these little U-shaped guys. I don't know if they were meant to look like Joy-Cons or what, but little dudes where I think you use the little trigger button to, if you're overlapping with someone else, anything that is part of your character's body, that overlaps someone else's, it'll cut out of the other person's character's body, which you can use there's a bunch of different modes. In some you're working together, in some you're competing, where like attacking each other really fast destroys them and then they have to come back. In other ones you're like trying to make a shape, so like, we'll make like a scoop out of a couple of these, and that way we can carry like a ball or whatever. It's a very, I keep saying interesting for like every fucking game, but it is a very interesting game. One that we didn't really play much of, and like maybe it'd be nice to go back to it again one of these days, but just a very kind of unique concept. I don't think I remember there ever being a game quite like that, so it was kind of cool. On the other side, we have Outrunners, which is a game we played for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. It's a racing game. You're racing cars out and about on the country roads. There is so little to say about it beyond that. Very arcade based and inspired racing game. I don't know if we've talked about Outrun yet. That's I think the game that came before this. But that is also somewhere in the mix here. It's a car racing game. I don't know what to tell you. So Snipperclips versus Outrunners. It's finally time. Next up it is Sonic Eraser versus Sonic Rivals 2. Sonic Eraser, infamous game on our channel. Did as part of the Supersonic Let's Play. It was, I think, just me and Ben. It's a block drop puzzle. I guess mostly like columns. But it features Sonic for a hot second. It's such a weird, actually no, does it even feature Sonic? I don't even remember. Is this that instance of like no, I think Sonic's in there. Yeah. Weird game. Terrible soundtrack. It's only like 2 videos, I think, on the channel, so very easy to go check out. If you haven't seen it before, highly recommend it. And then on the flip side, we have Sonic Rivals 2. So we have a Sonic versus Sonic match here. Sonic Rivals 2 is basically what happens if you take the original Sonic Rivals and make it twice as many things and change almost nothing else. It has voice acting this time, which was a relief because we did a bunch of silly voices for the first Rivals game. And it's not a fun game. It's actually a big pain in the ass to properly beat and clear, and you have to do it 8 times because all the different stories count separately. So that's a grand old time. That it felt like it went on forever, but the series is there if you want to check it out. We did it for the Supersonic Let's Play. Sonic Eraser versus Sonic Rivals 2. Following that, we have F-Zero versus Alien Soldier. F-Zero is one that I don't remember which one came first, but we covered both for the Super NES Classic Edition as well as for the Empty Video Game Nerd. Classic episode of EVGN for that. It's, if you're somehow not familiar, sci-fi racing game, very high speeds, very difficult too. The F-Zero games are actually quite hard, but both cases it was just a one-off thing. We've never actually played an F-Zero game like properly in full, but maybe that can change somewhere down the line. And then there's Alien Soldier, which is a game by Treasure Limited, and it's basically what you would get if you played Gunstar Heroes, but everything was humongous. All of the characters, all the enemies are gigantic, but a lot of very similar DNA going on there. Very hard, interesting game, but yeah, it was, again, one that we only played for, a one-off thing there. It's just similarly to F-Zero, honestly. But F-Zero versus Alien Soldier. If you're not familiar, then we got those links. Up next, we have Pokemon Sun versus Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Pokemon Sun was John's entry in the Sun versus Moon Padlock series. It was one, I believe he won that game. Sorry, just itching. Itchy scratching. There we go. Yeah, it was one that he did for our Padlock there, and his victory lap to do the post game came much later. It's actually post pandemic, if I recall correctly. But this one was kind of tricky because the pacing was a little rough. This might have been the first one that really stretched out to get done recording, because this was around the time that John was kind of in and out of Massachusetts a little bit. And also it was one where the game, like I said, the pacing is kind of all over the place. So you wind up with long stretches where we're just covering one game at a time, long stretches between Kahuna battles and Totem battles. And it did kind of drag a little bit compared with, X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But it is still a Padlock. It did still have a lot of those elements to it. It had an extremely difficult spike right at the end. And yeah, so there's that whole series if you're looking for it. And on the flip side, we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which is one we played. It's one of the more recent entries in the Supersonic Let's Play. The first of quite a few of these in there. And it's exactly what the name says. It's Mario characters and Sonic characters playing Olympic sports against one another. Somehow Sonic is not instantly the winner of every running event, and Mario is not instantly the winner of every jumping event. But I digress. I think this was myself and Jeff and maybe Peter. And this one is difficult also. We were just trying to clear missions and things because there's missions in there. There's a lot going on. It's not easy. But we've got quite a few more of these to come in the future. So, yeah, Pokemon Sun versus Mario and Sonic, the Olympic Games. It's another day. We're back. So, next up is Voez versus Vectorman 2. I actually recorded this, or I thought I did, and then it turned out that I wasn't recording, so that's fun. Voez was a game that we played as a one-off for my 30th birthday, which means that video is now almost 10 years old. Let's not talk about it. It was a charming little touchscreen-based rhythm game for the Switch, and the biggest trick there was that because it's touchscreen-based, we couldn't have the game be in docked mode, so we had to play in handheld mode, which meant we couldn't record the video output of the screen, so we had to put a camera over my shoulder while I played. It was a good time. It was a fun game. A little bit awkward and I do wish that there were better ways to record in handheld mode. But yeah, it was a kind of cool one. I would love to do more rhythm game stuff in general. On the flip side, we have Vector Man 2 for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. Vector Man and Vector Man 2 are both quite difficult Genesis era platforming games. I don't actually know if I got through the entire first level. It was quite difficult. It was just a one-off, so we didn't do very long with that either. So actually both of these are one-offs. But yeah, so Voz versus Vector Man 2. All right, up after that we have Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition versus Mario Party 8. Just double checking to get the number right. Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition was the version that I believe Ben played in the night of Dark Souls 3's release. He decided to play that while he waited for, I think the game had already been out, but he was waiting for it to download or update or something. So he played that for a few hours. Pretty short and sweet, but it's Ben playing Dark Souls, which is, always a good time. On the Mario Party 8 side of things, so this one is, I think Mario Party 8 was the first Wii title for Mario Party, I think. The most notable quality of Mario Party 8, as far as we're concerned, is Shy Guy's Perplex Express, which is it's a Mario Party board where you have, it's either like 4 or maybe 5 train cars in order, and you go through the train cars, get to the end where there's either Donkey Kong, who will give you a star, or Bowser, who will give you a Zetar, or does he take money? I forget which. It's bad either way. And it rotates each time. And then you go to the top of the trains and you run back. I have a Band-Aid on, by the way. You run all the way back and then back down. But there are ways to get the train cars to like shuffle like their order and stuff. There's a lot of little weird ways to kind of chaotically mess with that. And the first time we played it, Jeff and I were on a team and we kept getting stuck on top of the trains because as we would run along, I realize that this is probably backwards for you guys. That's okay. As we would run along the train, the car we were on would go back to the front of the train, and we have to run further back. Meanwhile, the folks inside would be getting further, and there would just be more cars getting added in front, so they were stuck kind of running forward the whole time. It was a very fascinatingly weird game, but yeah. So Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition versus Mario Party 8. Then after that, we have Mega Man X8 versus Sonic Rush Adventure. Mega Man X8 is essentially Mega Man, the X series' kind of last gasp, trying to get people back into it for a while. After kind of a shaky run with X5 was like okay, but a little bit awkwardly handled. X6 and 7 are both very disliked Mega Man X games. So X8 was kind of a return to form. It was mostly 2.5D. There were little bits of 3D, but it was generally pretty restrained on that front. It's an okay game. There's annoying bosses, but it's generally fine. It's not my favorite X game, but it's okay. And it was a nice kind of like coda to the end of that after some really rough numbered X games before then. And then we also have Sonic Rush Adventure, sequel to Sonic Rush on the Nintendo DS. This one is interesting because it's almost like fusing Sonic Rush and Phantom Hourglass together. You have to like chart your course on the ocean as you use different vehicles to get there, but you have to keep like fighting stuff on your way. You have to kind of get lucky and hope that you land on islands that you can actually go and check stuff out on. There's kind of a lot that's going on there. It was I think we were getting kind of tired of it by the end. But, we pushed through. And we played that for both the Supersonic Let's Play as well as for, I think, Sonic Weekathon 4 was our Sonic Advance and Rush run there. So we've got a couple tries at it. And in Sonic Weekathon 4, that was also the instant where I discovered that you can get locked out of 100%ing the game because of the order of how the game internally does things. If you clear 99 missions and then go beat the game, it doesn't know how to give you the final mission, so that's fun. But yeah, so Mega Man X8 versus Sonic Rush Adventure. Okay, so we were just talking about some of this. So next up we have Mega Man X5 versus Shining Force CD. So X5 is kind of in the middle of the PlayStation era for the X series. I think 4 was generally fine. 5, if I recall correctly, X5 was made. Oh, now I'm trying to remember if X5 or X6 was the one that was made without Keiji Inafune involved. Either way, though, the idea was that you were trying to stop I was about to call it the Eclipse cannon. That's not right. There's a cannon. You're trying to stop a potentially global devastating colony drop, the Eurasia colony, I think. And in doing so, I'm like they use there's a lot of repetition in some of the in some of the Mega Man games, because there's also a colony drop in the Zero series. And depending on how you look at it, there's similar stuff happening in Legends. But anyway, they added a whole thing where halfway through the game, the heroes try to, I think you try to fire a cannon to shoot down the colony that's being dropped. And there's actually a chance that you succeed, at which point you just skip to the end of the game. And it is random whether you get it or not. Like, how you do over your first 4 stages will improve your odds, but like the most canonical way of playing is that you don't do it. You beat stuff and then you don't get it because then you do the other stages. But like you can successfully shoot it and then you just go to the end of the game. It's very weird how that got handled. And then on the flip side of things, we have Shining Force CD, which is that one's kind of strange. It's a Sega CD repackaging, if I remember this correctly, of the 2 what are otherwise referred to as Shining Force Gaiden games. So I forget what the first one's called. I think it might just be Shining Force Gaiden. The second one is Shining Force: The Sword of Hajia, which is the game that I grew up with on the Game Gear. And so Shining Force CD puts those together and adds. How does this work? So they refer to them as books. Book 1, Book 2. Book 3, I think, is added material that is like referred to elsewhere, and then Book 4 is completely new material. It's interesting. We didn't get far enough into it to be able to, like, I recognized a couple characters, I think, as we were playing. It was just a one-off for Sega Genesis Mini 2. But we didn't get to the stuff that I was actually familiar with. But it was nice to see some of the characters that I recognized in there. But yeah, so Mega Man X5 versus Shining Force CD. All right, following that, we have Solar Striker versus The Revenge of Shinobi. Solar Striker is one that we played as oh boy, was it the intro to Mega Man X6? I think it might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been. And so this is one where I want to say it was that the developer was the same ultimately. Because Solar Striker, it was honestly just a great excuse to play Solar Striker. It's a game that I played a bunch on the Game Boy whenever I was at my aunt's place. And it's a tough little game, but it's also a short little game. There's not like a ton to it. But it was nice to be able to showcase that on here. I've wanted for a while to do a showcase of the games that I specifically grew up with, because there's a bunch that we have never covered on the channel because it doesn't fit into our usual like franchise plays. But yeah, short and sweet little shoot 'em up type game, a lot of fun. It's literally just a couple minutes at the start of I think X6. I would have to double check. Then we have The Revenge of Shinobi, which is part of the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. This one, I think I did the commentary for this one by myself. This one is just essentially a Shinobi game, which sounds really reductive, and I don't mean for it to be, but it is there's not a lot to say about it in a specific sense. I don't know enough about the Shinobi series to be able to highlight like specific unique things about it, but it was a short little experience. It was tough. We did it as a one-off. So again, if you want to see how that video went, that's in the attachments on the actual match on challenge.com. So Solar Striker versus The Revenge of Shinobi. Next after that, we have The Misadventures of Tron Bonne versus Swan Song. Tron Bonne v. Swan Song. So The Misadventures of Tron Bonne is a fun sort of side story prequel to the Mega Man Legends games. You play as Tron Bonne and her collection of 40 41. Serve bots as you try to collect money to pay off a debt what was it? Isn't it Gate? I think it might be Gate. I'm trying to remember. Maybe Gate was someone from Legends 2. I don't remember. But either way, it's an interesting sort of little it's like puzzle, a little bit of action. It's kind of a bunch of different things together, including a little bit of not quite life sim, but there's a little bit of management back at the base as you're trying to figure stuff out. Cute game, played as part of the Mega Let's Play. Yeah, not a lot else to say on that one. Swan Song is one we played for Special Delivery. We still have some of that in our list here. This is one where you play as someone on a ship that is under attack by some kind of extra dimensional force. It's a survival game with puzzle elements, a little bit of horror kind of suspense happening. It's honestly it's pretty impressive how much stuff was going on for a game jam type game. And it has the physical look of a lot of the spindly legged type. It's like that art style where everyone kind of looks like rectangles, little spindly legs, very gauzily watching. But yeah, so the Misadventures of Tron Bonne versus Swan Song. All right, after that we have Sonic Mania versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Sonic Mania is probably a game that doesn't require any introduction for our channel or otherwise. It very much brought Sonic back in terms of 2D games. It really kind of helped revive Sonic as a brand overall. We fucking loved it top to bottom. It was a grand old time. We played that thing to death right away. It showed up for the Supersonic Let's Play. I think I had it as the final game of the original Sonic Weekathon. Maybe I didn't. I'm trying to remember if I put that on at the end or not. I think I did. We did a Sonic Mania race back in the day as part of the games. And then more recently, we did a Sonic Mania race. Myself, Shell Shock, Corshell Valent, and Mr. Ben. Grand old time. I would happily play Sonic Mania over and over and over again. Shredder's Revenge is similarly, it's actually kind of funny that these two are up against each other because both of them are essentially revivals of classic 2D franchises. Shredder's Revenge is one we played for, I think, the D-Pad Supersoft Extra Life Charity Marathon stream, where it was myself, I think Jeff, Dave, and CJ playing together, playing 4-player, and it's a revival of the old NES and Super NES era Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. And both of them honestly really do a great job with it. It's actually, maybe it'll be a different sort of matchup because it's less about the games and more about our coverage. But if it was just a matter of matching the games up against each other, this would be, I think, a very difficult one. It might still be a very difficult one, to be honest. But yeah, so Sonic Mania versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Speaking of 2D Sonic, next up we have Sonic the Hedgehog 3 versus Resident Evil, the remake from 2023. Sonic 3, another one that probably doesn't need any introduction. This is one, it's funny because technically the version that we played back during Sonic Week was just was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. We played it all together. We actually very rarely play Sonic 3 by itself. But we did for the channel, and that is technically, depending on whether you include it or not, it's up to you, is what we introduced with A Brief History of Michael Jackson Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which amazingly, literally in my recommendations on YouTube, moments before coming in with this, I saw that someone put up a 11-minute video on Michael Jackson Sonic 3 a couple weeks ago, which was a fun watch. But even just the game itself, I mean, Sonic 3 is one that we all love on the channel, so it was a blast getting to do that. And on the flip side, we have Resident Evil 4, the remake from 2023, not the VR version. I believe that's elsewhere in this list, but this is the remake version, which I played with, well, I watched mostly. I believe CJ played most of this. We did it for the C-Pad. I think there were some points where we played remotely for Siege because we had played it. I forget if we started it before I moved. I think we played it before we moved. And then so we had to kind of do the rest of it remotely because we were, very far away and it was hard for CJ to get out here. But yeah, I mean, it's Resident Evil 4. It's one of the most important games to the history of the industry and game design. And it was interesting to see how some elements kind of seemed to stay the same from all those years ago versus the ones that got updated, quality of life adjustments and the like. But yeah, so Sonic 3 versus Resident Evil 4. All right, after that we have Sonic R versus Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2. Extra version, I think, or something. So Sonic R is a Sonic racing game for, I think, the Saturn, where depending on who you're playing, you either have vehicles or you don't. I know Sonic runs. I think Tails and Knuckles might run also. I think Amy might be the only one in a car. And I think I forget if you can play as Eggman also, but it's all right. It's a little jank. I had some trouble with it while we were playing it because we were also trying to go for Chaos Emeralds, which if you're not good at that game, like I am, then it's really hard to do the go out of your way to get Chaos Emerald stuff and then finish the race because you have to get your emerald and then I think finish in first for it to count. So there was that, and then there's Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2, which I have no earthly idea how this game connects with Bubble Bobble because you play as a little boy who looks art style similar to Bub and Bob. Maybe he's Bub or Bob, and one of them is a boy that got transformed. But you shoot rainbows in order to both climb and attack. I think we got into one boss fight and it wrecked my shit because, he's chasing you, throwing little tridents and things, and it's kind of hard to, like, your rainbow move does a little like whoop, like a little rainbow in front of you, and the star that is at the front of it can also be an attack, but that does also mean you're facing your enemy who's coming at you and throwing shit, and you can't really jump very much. It's a little weird, but I guess both of them are Sonic R versus Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2, Super Sonic Let's Play versus Sega Genesis Mini 2. After that, we have Kirby's Dream Course versus Ocarina of Time / Majora's Mask combo randomizer. Kirby's Dream Course. So this is one we played for the Dreamy Let's Play and also for the Super NES Classic Edition. I eventually came back around to it for Nightmare streams as well. This one's so funny because it's a game that I grew up with and I do like most of the game. But once you beat the game and you go into the extra courses, they are some of the hardest fucking challenges that I've encountered in any Kirby game. It's really difficult, and it took me a while to get through them on the streams. Fascinating, like, difficulty spike as you go through there, but I would still probably go back and play Dream Course in a heartbeat. I have such nostalgia for that game. And then on the flip side, we have the Ocarina Majora combo randomizer, which was one that I did as a stream myself. It took me like 30 hours to get through this. It wound up being kind of a super involved. I forget whether it was Hyrule or Termina, but one of them I was down to only one check remaining in the entire game by the end of it. Like, I have historically awful luck with randomizer seeds that result in me basically just needing to 100% games in order to get through them. But it was nice to be able to do a randomizer that included Majora's Mask. I've done some more since, which have been a great time. But yeah, I'm always down for an Ocarina or Majora randomizer. I love those. So yeah, Kirby's Dream Course versus Ocarina Majora combo randomizer. All right, after that we have Super Mario Odyssey versus Starmobile. Super Mario Odyssey is one that we played. We just played it for its own sake, wasn't part of anything. We played it over the course of, probably the better part of a year, at least 6 months. And it was a fucking blast. I think we all loved getting our hands dirty with that game, playing it through to completion. It was such a good time that it then became a 24-hour marathon stream that I did in, oh God, 2018, maybe? Might have been Extra Life 2017. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Extra Life. Probably would have been 2018. But played that thing all the way through. I think we barely didn't get a 9.99 Power Moons in 24 hours. I think we did it in a little over 25. But it was a hell of a time. Great, great game. I would just love a sequel to it, honestly. And then on the flip side, we have Starmobile, a game that we played for the Sega Genesis Mini 2, which, holy shit. The idea was it's sort of a dropping block puzzle game, except you're dropping stars and you need to put them onto two sides of a set of scales in order to keep it balanced for as long as possible as you get through a predetermined number of stars before the round ends. It's so weird. It's so weird. Sarah and I played this one and we were baffled the entire time. It's a one-off video. It's a lot easier to watch than Super Mario Odyssey, to be fair. But Super Mario Odyssey is, probably one of the best games we've ever played on the channel. So if you're looking for something to do, there's plenty of that. But Super Mario Odyssey versus Starmobile. Okay, next up we have Kirby Tilt and Tumble versus Warhammer 40k Shoota's Blood and Teeth. Tilt and Tumble is one that we played for the Dreamy Let's Play and features the infamous moment of... before I even say it, because this is a rare game for the Game Boy Color that had a gyro built in. It had a little gyroscope in the actual cartridge. And so it could detect the way that you were holding the Game Boy, and so you could lean it. And it was essentially like Kirby was like a ball on a little balancing thing. So you're trying to like navigate him around levels and stuff and use that and kind of flick the Game Boy to make him jump, that sort of thing. And so there was not a great way for us to record this, except, as I was able to figure out, by plugging a Game Boy player into a GameCube and then holding the entire GameCube as if it was a big Game Boy. And this actually worked really well. This actually did wind up working really well. Except for the one time where John slipped after losing a level and dropped the dropped the GameCube in the middle of playing, resulting in the whole thing turning off. So a pretty infamous moment on the channel overall. And then we have Warhammer 40k Shoota's Blood and Teeth, which is a cooperative kind of side-scrolling shooter, like run-and-gun type game in the 40k franchise. Very different from a bunch of the others, which are more like first-person shooter type things. At the very least, Dave and Teddy played this one. I don't know if anybody else did, but the Warhammer series, I don't know a ton about myself, so I can't get into the specifics, but if you want to learn more about it, we have the attachment in the match details there, so you can go and check that out. Kirby Tilt and Tumble versus Warhammer 40k Shoota's Blood and Teeth. All right, then after that we have Sonic Schoolhouse versus Ranger X. Sonic Schoolhouse, this was kind of a super deep cut. It's an edutainment game for PC. The first to feature a voice actor for Sonic, if I recall. Well, that's not true. Sonic CD had the I'm out of here or whatever. But besides that, this would have been the next one to have. This is the first one that had intentionally heard voice clips for Sonic the Hedgehog. Very creepy 3D aesthetic as you're wandering around picking up like letters and numbers and shit. I want to say that the creator of Baldi's Basics did say that Sonic Schoolhouse was an inspiration for the game, and that does not surprise me at all. It was very spooky, like unintentionally so, but just like a very unsettling sort of game. And then you have Ranger X, which is a game we played for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And this is one that there was a lot going on. It was really great sprite work, really good background tiling and parallax scrolling and stuff. I think I did the commentary for this one by myself, but it was it's almost like if you played Blaster Master, but you played as a full-blown mech that could fly around and stuff. There was a lot of stuff happening there, but a pretty cool game. One that I should probably get back to at some point because it'd be nice to check out the games that we play that actually have something unique going on for them. It's sunset right now, which is the reason for this behind me. But yeah, Sonic Schoolhouse versus Ranger X. All right, then after that we have Kirby's Toy Box versus Little Oni. Kirby's Toy Box is a collection of little micro games that was, I think that they were Satellaview games, and there were 7 in total, which it was very interesting because at the time that we got to them in the Dreamy Let's Play, only 3 of them had been preserved, and then later on, like a year later, another 3 got preserved, and then about 2 years after that, the final one got preserved. So now the entire set exists. We covered all of them. I even went back and did one of them for the Nightmare streams just for completion's sake. But yeah, there's like a baseball and a pachinko and like a bunch of like little micro. There's one that's like a big spiral thing. It's cute. It's weird. It was an interesting excuse to do a bunch of one-off little games. They really, in some cases, we really had to stretch it to get to 15 minutes. Because that was usually our target, was like 15 minutes. But some of those games did not have a lot of replay value. Little Oni is one that we played as part of Special Delivery. This is one that Peter played while Jeff and I did commentary. And it was one where you play as a... I think you play as... I guess not a samurai. I don't exactly know. A shinobi type. But you are taking care of a little infant demon, your little Oni, and in order to attack things, you have to throw the baby because you can't swing your sword while you're carrying the baby, and then you have to catch the baby. If you don't catch the baby, then you lose and you go back. Fun little way to kind of handle a sort of contextual, attack pattern and all of that. Like you can only attack if you don't have the baby, but if you don't have the baby, you've got like a second or two to get it done before you have to catch the baby again. Again, the theme for Ludum Dare 53 was delivery, so that fits pretty well. It's a fun twist on like delivering a baby in a more like Yoshi's Island kind of way. But yeah, I think it was kind of cute. Kirby's Toy Box versus Little Oni. All right, we've changed our scenery for here. Probably not going to have the funky lights, but at least the background will be interesting now. Next up, we have Donkey Kong Country versus Golden Axe 2. Donkey Kong Country is one we played for Donkeython, Donkeython Returns. I think it was also part of the Super NES Classic Edition. It's a classic, right? Like, it's maybe a little bit, not stiffer exactly, but it's not quite... Apologies, by the way, if you hear motorboats and things in the background. I'm on a lake at the moment, so... There's that. Try not to lose my train of thought. So Donkey Kong Country is very interesting because it's very like outdoorsy vibes and stuff in a different way from 3. 3 does that also, but in kind of different way. I'm gonna have to cover that up. Sorry, Jesus, I'm off to a great start here. But it's a classic. There's a reason that I decided I wanted to play it over and over again for streams every couple years. And the music is some of the best ever. David Wise cranking out crazy games. I realize, by the way, that for these videos, I'm mostly talking about the games and not the coverage, only because there is a lot of coverage, and it's hard for me to kind of sum that up in a meaningful way. But for at least for this one, it's an instance where most of the coverage we've done for this has been me doing it solo. Technically doing a 100% speed run of it as well, or 101% speed run for Donkey Kong Country. Golden Axe 2 is one that Sarah and I played for Sega Genesis Mini 2. It's a, your classic sort of side-scrolling, like, beat-em-up type adventure, really. But, sword and sorcery sort of feeling there. I feel like it didn't scratch your itch as much as, like, a Gauntlet game would, but, it's... I feel like Golden Axe is one of those, like, iconic kind of, retro franchises for that sort of thing. It was a one-off for that. Technically, the Donkey Kong Country one we did for the Super NES Classic Edition was also a one-off. The full runs of them weren't, but, one-off for each of those in there. So Donkey Kong Country versus Golden Axe 2. After that, we have Kirby's Dream Land 3 versus Depths of Sanity. So Kirby's Dream Land 3 is one that we covered for the Dreamy Let's Play. As well as I did wind up doing Nightmare streams to 100% it later on. One of the more interesting things for that is, with it being a very late late entry into Super Nintendo. It was actually, I think, one of the very last games on the whole console. That meant that it had some chips in it that not every emulator is like super equipped for. So we played this on the Retron 5, and it was mostly fine, but one of the later levels, the background did a very interesting thing where it was kind of like this rapidly scrolling kind of pattern thing, and the emulation in the Retron 5 was not really built to handle that. So the end result is this weird thing where like any given sprite of Kirby that goes in front of that background would be frozen there. So you have this like trailing ghost of Kirby sprites. It's very weird stuff. But you know, I've yet to try. There's a few other emulatable things. We have a Poly Mega now. I'm curious how that one handles it. But it was still an interesting time. It was sad to see the Super Nintendo kind of go after doing, you know, Dreamland 3, but Depths of Sanity is a game that Jeff streamed. It's one of the rare Jeff solo streams, actually, from about 3 years ago. You play as a like submarine going deep underwater and encountering both deep sea and kind of eldritch sort of things down there and discovering that. So a fun little streaming series there. There's only 3 streams for it, so if it's one that you're not familiar with, it shouldn't be too hard to be able to go and at least check some of that out. Again, check the attachments on the matches, and you can find the links to everything. But Kirby's Dream Land 3 versus Depths of Sanity. The jet skis are very loud today. All right, next up after that, we have Sonic X-treme versus Mario Strikers Battle League. So Sonic X-treme is one that we played a few minutes of the prototype for in the run-up to, or at the start of Sonic Jam's Let's Play series. We did as much of it as we could, but I mean, very little of it exists. It was nice to see the groundwork for what would essentially become Sonic Adventure, like just the sensibilities of doing like a 3D Sonic game, as well as Lost World down the line, but not a lot to say about this. We only spent a few minutes of it, but it was nice, just the group of us to kind of like fiddle around with that for a few minutes before we got into Sonic Jam. On the other side, we have Mario Strikers Battle League, which was part of the kind of Mario Sports mini tournament we had during the D-Pad's Super Soft Extra Life Charity Marathon stream. And this one, I think it was myself, Sarah, Jeff, and Dave playing against each other in a handful of matches. I mean, it's Mario doing soccer. It is funny the ways that it did remind me of Rockman Soccer, but Mega Man Soccer, Rockman Soccer, what have you. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say about it. Sports games are always kind of tricky to describe because they are pretty straightforwardly the sport, right? But it was neat to be able to do like a tournament format for that. So yeah, both of these kind of short little glimpses of them, but Sonic X-treme versus Mario Strikers Battle League. After that, we have Capsule Silence 24 versus Dragon Quest. Capsule Silence 24 is a fun one. So this is a weird little art project that the band Anamanaguchi put together. And we played it. We kind of played it as a one-off, I think, but it was essentially something we were doing around the period of our 5th anniversary on the D-Pad. We did this around the time we did our 5th anniversary podcast, as well as the Sonic Dreams Collection video, which then wound up leading into the Supersonic Let's Play. But it was kind of a neat little experimental, sort of music-driven 3D platforming thing. And yeah, it was kind of a fun thing for us to get in on. Always love little experimental indie sort of things like that. Dragon Quest, I mean, I grew up playing Dragon Warrior on the NES. For Dragon Quest, I think I played a translated Super Famicom port of it. I forget exactly why. I think there was the possibility I was going to do 2 and 3 in a similar way, but I think like right before I streamed Dragon Quest was when they announced Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remix or something, because the plans changed very rapidly from there. I actually still need to get into Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake now that those are a thing and out. But yeah, it was a cute little thing to do. It was also in honor of the recent passing of, was it Akira Toriyama? Am I going to get that backwards? Oh no. Okay, pause to double check. It was Akira Toriyama. Okay, just double checking that I didn't get that super wrong. But yeah, it was a nice little tribute there. Obviously, his art style really defined that series in the same way it obviously defined everything about Dragon Ball. But I thought it was a nice kind of tribute, and then obviously 3 HD2D remake wound up being a thing shortly after. But yeah, it was a fun one-off stream. Both of these are technically one-offs, depending on how you phrase, and frame one-off. But yeah, Anamanaguchi's Capsule Silence 24 versus Dragon Quest. All right, after that we have Mega Man 04 versus Sonic Omens. 04, I mean, I've struggled to describe the Zero games on an individual basis before because they are ultimately extremely similar, but this is the one that kind of closes out the series. It does sort of feel in some ways like almost an epilogue in some ways, where the first 3 do feel like a tight-knit sort of trilogy of things. 04 almost seems more like 03 Part 2 or like a 03 epilogue, because there's a lot of like aftermath type stuff, because I think Phantom is dead. You've already fought Dr. Vile, but he's back again with Omega. This is essentially the swan song to the entire, to not just, Mega Man Zero series, but Zero as a character, and really in a lot of ways, the entire run of Mega Man 1 up through Mega Man 04, because it is one continuous line that really goes all the way there. Like, Dr. Wily's legacy is still a factor all the way out in 04. And then by the time of ZX, it kind of changes gears. It becomes a very different thing, even though there's elements of Zero and even the X series that make their way into ZX as well. And actually the classic too, but like in a different sort of way. It's feels like a less narratively connected way than with the Zero series. Sorry, my thumb keeps getting in the way because I do occasionally, my arm is at like almost full length just to get this shot, so my arm gets a little bit tired. I'm going to have to cut that. I'm going to have to blur that part too. I'm so sorry. My wrist is so close to being healed. God damn. Anyway, Sonic Omens is sort of a tricky one because, so this was a series, I streamed it in, I think, 7 parts. I forget if I streamed it all in one night or if I streamed it over the course of several nights and broke it up. Could have been either. I think I did it all in one night and just broke it up. It was made by a Russian, I think, dev team. And like, I'm at odds here, because on the one hand, it's a Sonic fan game, and those take a lot of work. And just that on its own is a respectable endeavor. But there were also some issues, like they specifically were raising money for this on Patreon, which is kind of a big no-no with fan games in general, especially given Sega has generally, historically been really cool with fan games, so long as you're not profiting off of them. So this throws a lot of that stuff into danger. There were also some like weird comments from the dev team. There was also some odd choices in the game, like including Maria Robotnik as a boss battle, as a form of like Shadow fighting his trauma, which felt a little bit disrespectful to the character, to all of them really. There was also the inclusion of Chris Thorndike, sort of like really awkwardly and pointlessly added to the story and then killed by the end of it, I guess. It's weird. It's very weird. But I played it around the same time I was doing Sonic and the Fallen Star and Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. I was in kind of a kick with streaming some Sonic fan games. But yeah, I mean, and again, this has less to do with the game itself and more to do with the coverage. So like, decide on that as you will. If you think that those streams were good, then maybe that does deserve the vote. But yeah, I don't know. It was an odd experience, to say the least. But yeah, Mega Man 04 versus Sonic Omens. All right, next up we have Sonic Drift 2 versus Shining in the Darkness. Sonic Drift 2 was a much better run than Sonic Drift 1. More characters, more races. I think there might have been more GPs in there as well. Holy cow, my mustache is doing crazy stuff today. Keeps going in my mouth too. That's fun. Great diversion. So, yeah, racing game, Game Gear. Not a lot to talk about there, but it was essentially a step up from Sonic Drift, in the same way Sonic Rivals 2 is a step up from Sonic Rivals and standard sequel stuff. It wound up being a better done time. There's a boat passing by very slowly. It was a better time than the original Sonic Drift. I think John and I were in just a better mood overall. But yeah, short and sweet. I don't think we spent terribly long on it. It wound up showing up again for Sonic Weekathon 2 for Game Gear as well. Beating that in 100% was rough, but we got through it. it was an interesting time there. And then Shining in the Darkness is a game in the Shining kind of meta series. This one is a little different from the Shining Force type games. This one's a dungeon crawler similar to, is it Shining the Holy Ark or Shining Wisdom? We did another one of these for the Sega Saturn not too long ago, but this is one for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series that we did. Like I said, dungeon crawler. I think you can have up to a party of 3 as you're going through, so it's a more traditional RPG experience. But the dungeon crawling portion is, it's a first-person perspective dungeon crawler, similar to how like Persona 1 seems to handle a bunch of that stuff. As well as, I know Ripen Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love had a first-person dungeon crawler. There's a few games that have kind of gone down that road, and it was a little stiff, but like not terrible, especially for an early era RPG. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, so Sonic Drift 2 versus Shining in the Darkness. Right after that, we have WWE 2K17 versus Atomic Runner. 2K17 we didn't play nearly as much as 2K16. I think we only really did like 2 events with that before we kind of faded away on that. I think we were just kind of like, we were starting to get kind of done with the formula. It did start to feel a little bit repetitive after a while. It's something that we wouldn't necessarily not go back to, though. Me personally, I don't really want to do much involving the WWE right now. But, you know, it was just an interesting kind of format that we messed around with. Obviously, CJ and Felice and I were in there. I forget if others were for these 2 videos in particular. But it's also, you know, there's not a lot going on there, so it's easy enough to check that out if you haven't seen it before. Atomic Runner was a one-off we did for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. You guys are probably getting super tired of me talking about the Sega Genesis Mini 2 at this point, but we're almost there. This is one, it's so interesting. It's very much like a 50s, like retro futuristic sci-fi type aesthetic for the game. Like, I'm pretty sure your main dude has like the fishbowl silver helmet running around and things. It seems to be kind of just an auto-scrolling run and gun type situation. It almost feels kind of Contra-y to a certain extent. I think I did this one solo. It was just a one-off, so it's easy enough to go check out if you're not familiar with it. But WWE 2K17 versus Atomic Runner. After that, we have Kirby Star Stacker versus Deliver Me. Star Stacker is one that we played for the Dreamy Let's Play and for the Nightmare streams. This, I think, might have been... this might have been the first series we had Lindsay for. And I don't know if I'm sure we've told this story before, but the way that this happened was, like, John and I were out, like, walking to go get coffee somewhere. Was Ian with us? I think Ian might have been with us, too. And literally just on our way back, we saw that Lindsay was also... It might have been Lindsay and Felice? I'm trying to remember exactly who were there. I remember I remember I was there. I remember John was there. I remember Lindsay was there. But we just like came across like, oh, there's like Lindsay and Felice, I think, having lunch at this spot that's like halfway between where we got our coffee and home. And we chatted them up, and she was like, oh, what are you up to today? And we're like, oh, we're playing some Kirby games on the channel. She's like, oh, you're playing Kirby games? And we're like, oh boy. And we gave her the spiel about what we were up to, and she's like, can I join in on that? And we're like, yes, obviously. So she came and she played stuff and then, you know, played a whole shitload more. But this is also the series where Dustin was there for a good chunk of it. Dustin might have been there for this also. I cannot remember who specifically was there. But this is one where I think we all slowly lost our minds over the course of the whole series. Just because we were doing mostly the puzzle mode, which got very, 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 very repetitive. And so we just kind of started losing it on Mike. Very memorable series. Yeah, my hair is doing some weird stuff right now. The other game being Deliver Me. This is one we played as part of Special Delivery. It was one of the Ludum Dare 53 games. This one, you're playing as this little ghosty dude who's grabbing bones and things to bring as a sacrifice to this like pit, this sacrificial pit in the middle of the play area. I think this one was just me. I think the others hadn't gotten there yet. But it was a short little romp. I didn't play it for very long. But it was a cute little game. I think it was 10th place for that year for Ludum Dare. So that was kind of our starting point to kind of get us to the others. I don't actually know if there's any left that we haven't covered for this yet. So this might be the last one out of our Ludum Dare games on the list. But yeah, so Kirby Star Stacker versus Deliver Me. I almost called it Special Delivery. That's a different game. Deliver Me. All right, after this we have Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition versus Super Metroid and A Link to the Past Combo Randomizer. Got a lot of words on this one as well. So Ori and the Blind Forest is one that Ben and Lindsay played together for. It was just one stream. I thought they had played more, but it was just the one. Adorable, little indie, game. You're playing as this kind of little glowy creature in a dark world trying to explore. It was part of the era where many indie games were a little white creature in a black world, or a little like shadowy being or something. Stuff like Hollow Knight also comes to mind as well. Limbo too. It was a very powerful thematic motif that folks were using a lot of. But it did get a sequel at one point. I've been told they're both very charming little games. I've not played them myself. Super Metroid and A Link to the Past Combo Randomizer is one that we've covered 3 times on the channel now. The first time was for... what was it for? I'm trying to remember what specifically. It was for the Supersoft Extra Life Charity Marathon stream, where Jeff and I kind of tag teamed a combo randomizer where I would play the Link to the Past portions and Jeff would play the Super Metroid portions. And we did not quite finish in our allotted time. I think we played for like 4 or 5 hours, and we were like, we might be kind of stuck. Let's just move on to the next thing. We then played it again for... and then we played it again for the D-Pad Re-13, our 13th anniversary stream, where we tried it again. We gave ourselves even more time. We still didn't get there after 9 hours, and so we gave up and moved on. And then very recently, so Shad, JV, and I have been doing a handful of Zelda randomizers together as a collaborative thing, and we did a sort of a multi-world combo randomizer. So rather than one of us doing A Link to the Past, one of us doing Super Metroid, both of us had a combo randomizer of both games, and we recently wrapped that up. A couple of weeks ago, actually, we wrapped that up. The first video has gone up as of the recording of this. The second one might go up by the time this video is ready. But so that one's not completely done yet. I mean, like, it's not completely up VOD-wise. We have finished the run. It took, 20-ish hours, something like that. But it's fun to get in there and do that. We also made it more difficult. We added like key spots to Super Metroid, so you had to have keys to get into certain areas, because Super Metroid is one where it's tough to do a combo randomizer of it sometimes, because while the equipment does limit your movement, once you have all of your equipment, you can kind of just go do everything. And while that sounds very similar to A Link to the Past, it's a lot easier to get basically everywhere in Super Metroid with a much smaller amount of equipment, if that makes any sense. So this kind of rebalances that out a little bit. But there's 5 videos that are coming for that. One of them is currently live. There might be another by the time you see this. But yeah, so Ori and the Blind Forest versus Super Metroid A Link to the Past Combo Randomizer. Then up we have Mega Man Battle Chip Challenge versus The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This will be an interesting match. So Battle Chip Challenge is a game set... I don't actually know exactly when it's set. I don't think it matters where it's set within the time frame of the Battle Network games, but it's essentially the premise of this game. It's kind of twofold. One, it's a tournament-based game. This came out during the 3 and 4 era of the series where everything was tournaments. But in addition to being a tournament-driven game, it was also one where you played as LAN, or whoever the operator is. I think you can choose other operators too. You don't play as Mega Man in the same way you do in the Battle Network games. So what I mean by that is you set your deck, you choose how you want things to be laid out, and then the battle starts and your NetNavi chooses how it's going to operate. It operates completely independently of you. You have no input whatsoever, which makes for a really irritating game, because you're just sitting there hoping that your NetNavi does the right stuff based off of whatever your plan is. It took what felt like forever to get through it. Technically, I don't think we even 100%ed it. We finished the game, and then I think we moved on because we were like, this sucks. It was a rough time. I don't remember how our commentary went for that. And then on the flip side, we have Tears of the Kingdom, which we played for like, what, 230 episodes or something. We put in just under 200 hours. It is currently the longest series on the channel. Currently, because the Pokemon The Very Best series is guaranteed to go for longer. It's going to go for around 300 hours. But for the time being, for the rest of 2026, Tears of the Kingdom is the longest series in the channel's history. We tried to spice it up by making sure that like milestone videos had interesting things going on. We had I think our 100th episode featured us getting the Master Sword. I think the 150th was us taking on the Gleeok for the first time. I think the 200th was us assaulting the castle for the first time. There was a lot of stuff we tried to do to kind of like make it an interesting experience there. But very big game, tons to do. I am probably never going to play it again because I 100%ed it. There's nothing in that game I haven't done. So there's not like a need for me to go back and play it, at least anytime soon, if ever again. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting one, especially like as a comparison to Breath of the Wild that was mostly like me and Ben and Lindsay. I think Tears of the Kingdom was a lot of like me and Sarah and Peter. There were other folks that were in there as well, but like I think that was kind of our main crew for this. And then eventually I did my own solo streams for it to 100% it after we beat the game to like clear out all the Korok seeds and all the extra like bits in there. But yeah, very, very long series, our longest yet. So Mega Man Battle Chip Challenge versus Tears of the Kingdom. All right, next up we have Sonic Jam for the Gamecom versus Trine Enchanted Edition. I think it's Trine, it might be Trine. Sonic Jam for the, I think, Tiger Gamecom is a mess. It's one of two Gamecom games we've covered on the channel, the other one being Resident Evil 2. There's a huge bee right outside the thing there. I hope it doesn't discover the holes in the bottom of this deck. It's essentially exactly what it sounds like. It's an attempt to be Sonic Jam for the Gamecom. The problem is the Gamecom is not a very good game console, system, handheld, anything. So it runs like shit, and it's framey and awful, and it's literally unbeatable in a couple spots. So that was an interesting one-off for us to do at one point. It was definitely amusing, that's for sure. And then the other side we have Trine Enchanted Edition. I think it's Trine. It might be Trine. Which is a 3-player cooperative, I'd say, action puzzle game. It's a little hard to define exactly, but you play as 3 characters. I think it's an archer, a mage, and a soldier. And each of you has different abilities, and those abilities together combine in a way where you can solve like intricate platforming puzzles and fighting enemies and things like that. It was one that we did for, I think, oh boy, if I can actually check the thing. Yes, we did it for the Supersoft Extra Life Charity Marathon stream. I believe it was Jeff, Dave, and I that did that one. And it was okay. It wasn't really my cup of tea, but it was kind of fun from a puzzle standpoint. And yeah, it was a one-off bit for that stream as well as Sonic Jam. So Sonic Jam for Gamecom versus Trine Enchanted Edition. Then next up we have Kirby's Block Ball versus the Jackbox Party Pack 2. Kirby's Block Ball, early Kirby Dreamy Let's Play situation. I came back to it for the Nightmare streams, which was honestly very difficult. Some of those levels are very hard. And it's essentially like a Kirby-styled Breakout-like game. There were a few mini-games in later Kirby games that would kind of come back to similar ideas there. I want to say Kirby Canvas Curse had one of its mini games that was essentially an extension of Kirby Block Ball. It was very difficult. I don't think we really had the best time with it, but we were in and out with it pretty quickly. Short little Game Boy game, one of many, many Game Boy games that were in there. I guess not that many, but a decent number. I don't know. And on the flip side, we have the Jackbox Party Pack 2. This one is already off to a better start than the first pack. It includes Fibbage, Fibbage 2 and Quiplash XL, both excellent games. Having both Fibbage and Quiplash in the same game was kind of crazy. They're maybe a little too similar to warrant being in the same pack, but I think this is the only one they were both in. You also had Earwax, which is a sound-based, it was like an audio game where you have a prompt and you have to put together sound effect samples to come up with the best representation of that sound or that prompt. You also have Bidiots, which was an art auction game. It's a drawing game and an auction game built together. That one's honestly a pretty fun one. I've played board games that go similar ways to that too, but it's a great combination there. And then the last one was Bomb Corp, which is a cooperative. It's essentially just a miniature version of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, though I think it predates that by a little bit. You play as a collection of, you all have your phone screens, and on them you will get little bits of instructions. Sometimes they matter, sometimes they don't, and you have to follow the instructions in order to defuse bombs in the office. But we did this as part of Jackathon. It's the only time we've ever played Jackbox Party Pack 2. And yeah, some fun stuff in there for sure. And it was early into Jackathon, so we probably had more energy than we would later. But yeah, so Kirby's Block Ball versus the Jackbox Party Pack 2. And then after that we have Mega Man Battle Network 4.5 Real Operation versus Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi. Battle Network 4.5. This was a strange one. Mostly because it revealed to us some interesting things about how the Retron works mechanically. So the point of Battle Network 4.5 is supposed to be that you play it, and I think it's a Game Boy Advance game, but you play it and there's an internal clock that is going on all the while so that you can be involved in like daily or weekly events that run on a timed schedule. Like there are certain times of day or times of week that you are allowed to do certain things. And so to advance as far as we could into this game, this involved a lot of really weird stuff. It involved leaving the Retron on while I went to work and then coming back and, setting a save state, because so what I learned was save states would retain the exact time, but turning... Oh God, how did this work? If I turned off the Retron, time wouldn't advance. If I save stated, I think it actually did retain that. So I had to do this in a very different way than what I would have expected for like, oh, here's an event that's 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon. I'm going to have to, if I leave this on for a few hours every night, then I'll be able to make the game think it's Monday afternoon in time for the next recording session. It was weird. There was one point I had to leave that we just barely missed a weekly event and we had saved. So what that meant is we had to leave the Retron on for a full week in order to get back around to it. It was a mess. It was a very unique series, though, I will say that. On the flip side, we have Shadow Dancer, The Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi, not to be confused with the game The Revenge of Shinobi. There's a lot of awkward names in the Shinobi series. This one, it's one we did for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 with Sarah and I. It was probably one of the better Shinobi games that we've played on the channel. It just ran smoother, looked nicer. You got a little wolf guy with you, which is fun. Just a one-off video for that, but you know, Shinobi games are always like a little bit of tough, but they're not like impossible. I think they have like a fine degree of challenge to them, along with the ability to progress. But yeah, so Mega Man Battle Network 4.5 Real Operation versus Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi. All right, after that we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Beta versus Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest. I almost forgot the subtitle for it. I was like, wait a minute. So Sonic 2 Beta is one that I think any person who was a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog and online in any capacity in the 2000s is probably very aware of. Simon Y was the person responsible for kind of uncovering all of this. And it's a really interesting thing. You get to see some unfinished zones, some zones that got changed, some zones that got replaced entirely. Like this was where we got like Wood Zone and Genocide City Zone and Hidden Palace Zone before it showed up again in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And using some slightly outdated Sonic 1 sprites. Really fascinating stuff. We did about as much of it as I think we could for the channel, but for these beta and prototype ones, there's only so much we can do. But I think we got a pretty good look at it overall, and it was nice to get to explore that. It was very nostalgic for me because I had played it in high school when the game kind of made the rounds online. I was fascinated by it. I think it was the first time I'd ever actually seen like pre-release material, playable pre-release material for a game. So it was a pretty iconic moment for just the internet at large, really. And then on the other side, we have Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. For sure the best in the trilogy. I don't think that's a hot take. I would say it's the best out of all the Donkey Kong Country games, including Returns and Tropical Freeze. Also not a hot take as far as I'm aware. Beautiful soundtrack, gorgeous sprite work. The gameplay is so good. Everything about it is fantastic. We played it for Donkeython and Donkeython Returns. I'm actually double checking. Did we get to do it for... No, it wasn't part of the Super NES Classic Edition. That's a real shame. But yeah, no, it was a blast to be able to... It's been my favorite part of both Donkeythons. Although I will say Donkey Kong 94 was put up a good fight. But yeah, DKC 2 is just a classic. I love any excuse to play that game. So good. It adds so much more collectathon-y challenge from the first game, and I think it's a tighter experience than the third game. I'll probably be playing it again this winter. So yeah, Sonic 2 Beta versus Donkey Kong Country 2. All right, then we have Sonic Blast versus Fatal Fury 2. Sonic Blast, which we did for the Super Sonic Let's Play, is a terrible Game Gear game featuring Sonic. During the era where Donkey Kong Country and the like were really kind of taking over in terms of the like rotoscope style CG pre-rendered sprite era, the folks over at Sega decided Sonic should do the same, and so we got Sonic Blast for the Game Gear for some reason. It's a chunky, barely playable mess. The sprites are fucking enormous. It's sluggish, it's janky, it's stiff, hard to play. We did get through it, and eventually I played it again as part of Sonic Weekathon 2 for Game Gear. It's rough, man. It's a rough game. I don't think we enjoyed ourselves super much while we played it either. We also had Fatal Fury 2, which is one that Sarah and I did for Sega Genesis Mini 2. It's a fighting game for the Genesis. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It does like ladder-style single-player tournament play in the same realm as like your Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat type stuff. I've never been a big fighting fan. This probably wasn't the best representation of the game, to be honest. I think if we had like Jeff or Dave on there who are much more into fighting games, that might have been a different kind of story there. I would love to see their takes on a number of the fighting games we've done on the channel, honestly. But yeah, so Sonic Blast versus Fatal Fury 2. Whew, getting a bit congested out here. So next we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for 8-bit systems versus MyHouse.wad. Sonic 2 for 8-bit. I don't really know what happened here, because the first time we played it for the Super Sonic Let's Play, something went horribly wrong with our recording. We were emulating it, and we were recording through like screen recording stuff, so that like while we were playing it, and we were recording the audio and all that stuff too. But something went really wrong that got extremely framey. Something in the recording, it just didn't have like the right bit rate or something. So it progressively got worse and worse until we finally got to the final battle of the game. And it, which to be fair, is a level that's got a bunch of like strobe lights and things. So it's not great video anyway, but it was like a frame a second. It was barely, I wouldn't even say barely watchable. It was unwatchable. I fortunately got to get us back into it again for Sonic Weekathon 2 for Game Gear. Much better looking video in the end. It's the cleanest video we have of it. But yeah, it was already a game that like I never really liked Sonic 2 for Game Gear growing up. And I wasn't really wowed by it when we played it again for the channel. Or when I played it again myself for Sonic Weekathon, but I don't know. Maybe folks will feel differently about the series and how the commentary went. On the flip side, we have MyHouse.wad, which is certainly one of the most unique things we've ever had on the channel. It is a now infamous Doom mod. I think Doom 2 specifically, I'm not 100% sure, has to be running GZ Doom to get everything in there working properly, but it's one that exploits a lot of the mechanics of how the Doom engine actually operates in order to create this weird, like, Escher non-Euclidean fucking experimental thing. It's inspired very heavily by House of Leaves. It's got a lot of direct references to it, and overall it just has a very inspired sort of view to it. But you essentially are navigating this house in this sort of psychological weird journey. The house mutates over time and travels through time, and it might burn down, or it might be abandoned, or it might be pristine. And there's all these little like things as you're figuring it out. There's a Google Docs like folder that goes along with it with like diary entries as sort of supplemental, not just supplemental info, but also just supplemental material for the game. So there's a lot really going on here, and I would highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. Both CJ and Felice's run of that, I think it was 5 streams, as well as just play the game yourself. I mean, arguably play the game yourself first, so you don't spoil the experience, because there's a lot going on there and a lot to uncover. You'll know the game is over when you've found the secret. When the game tells you found the secret, you have finished the game. But yeah, so Sonic 2 8-bit versus MyHouse.wad. After that, we have Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting versus Sylphid. So Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, I think that's the full chain of stuff there. It's a Street Fighter 2 game. I'm not going to be able to describe the game in meaningful ways to distinguish it from other Street Fighter 2 games. But this is one we played for the Super NES Classic Edition. And then we brought it back later as part of the games for our like martial arts event, I think. And like, it was a short and sweet thing. I mean, it depends. Honestly, the biggest thing here is whether the presentation in the games, elevates it to a certain degree above other games there. But no, I mean, one of these days I will give myself an education on fighting games. It really is maybe my biggest blind spot, even more than racing games. But both of them one-off experiences. There's not a lot going on there time-wise, so you can check out both videos if you're interested in seeing more. And then we've got Sylphid, which was one we did for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. This one is a really ambitious title. It's got 3D, like vector-style graphics. Very, not quite... Damn it, I'm going to have to cover that up too. Not quite to the degree of like Star Fox, but really not that far off. Like, it really does have a lot happening there in terms of 3D stuff. Pretty impressive. Sarah and I checked it out for a while, and I'm a big fan of like shoot 'em up type games, and this was sort of halfway between a standard scrolling shoot 'em up and a Star Fox. Pretty fun. It seemed like it was a little bit laggy, and the at times, and the voice bits that were in there were a little bit buried in the mix, so it wasn't like the most amazing experience, but it was a fun time to check out for a little bit. So yes, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting versus Sylphid. After that, we have Sonic & Knuckles versus Resident Evil Revelations. Sonic & Knuckles is sort of a unique case among like the Sonic franchise, the Genesis-era Sonic games, Super Sonic Let's Play, because I don't know many people who play Sonic & Knuckles by itself. I know plenty of people who play Sonic 3 by itself, but or especially Sonic 3 and Knuckles together. Not a lot of people play Sonic & Knuckles without something plugged into it. So it was an interesting time just starting from Mushroom Hill and just going to the end. It's a very short experience because there's really only like 4 zones, then you hit Hidden Palace, and then depending who you're playing, you're either doing Death Egg Sky Sanctuary and Death Egg with Sonic, or you're immediately going to your final boss as Knuckles. Knuckles only having 4 actual zones here is kind of nuts. Not to mention, oh no, that's Carnival Nights, and that's when it's put together. It's like, you also don't even have a boss fight in all of them. That's not true. But yeah, so like a short kind of experience, and it was sort of our gateway into doing Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic 2 and Knuckles, Blue Sphere, which is basically Sonic 1 and Knuckles. So there's a lot of like entry points there, but we were kind of, high on doing the Genesis Sonic era stuff. Resident Evil Revelations, if you'll recall, is the one that features all the boats. The one that's got twin boats that then have a sunken triplet boat. One of the weirdest twists I've ever seen in a game. You get to the room that they're in and discover that you're just in physically identical boats that are separated across the ocean. CJ and I think swapped off for this one. It was a fun time. There was some difficult moments in there, but A pretty good. I think this was a better blend of action and traditional Resident Evil gameplay than some of the other ones we've played that have dipped more into the action side of things. But the whole series is there. I don't think it's even all that long of a series, so it shouldn't be too terrible to check out. Sonic & Knuckles versus Resident Evil Revelations. Next up, we have Blaster Master Zero versus Viewpoint. Blaster Master Zero is one that we were playing as one of our just kind of random Switch games. It wasn't part of a series or anything. If anything, I would really love to get back to doing that. Both Blaster Master Zero and just random Switch titles and stuff. But it's a fun game. I actually remember it's so funny because it's a Switch remake of, it's like half port, half remake, of a game from like 1989-ish or something, Blaster Master, which I did not, I had a very concrete memory in my mind growing up of there was a game for, it might have been the NES, might have been the Genesis, but you play as this little tank trundling along and fighting stuff, but then there's a ladder and you climb out of your tank and you go down, and it turned out that was Blaster Master. And it was a great game to kind of get into. We didn't play that much of it. We played like a handful of episodes, but fun little game. I think that might have been the end of when we were doing random Switch games. Viewpoint is one that we did for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. It was a solo commentary for me, I believe. It was like this top-down isometric type, very slow auto-scrolling shoot-'em-up game. It's interesting because there was like a lot of stuff going on, but the screen moved painfully slow. So like the pacing was kind of an issue there, but interesting one we did. I mean, it was yet another Genesis Mini 2 era thing. So like, you know, there's a million of those, but I feel like it was one of the more unique entries among the shoot 'em up type ones. So, and it's a one-off video. Again, easy enough to check. So Blaster Master Zero versus Viewpoint. Okay, we're back inside. There are folks around, so I figure it's a little less bizarre for me to be doing this like this, but let's turn on the background lights again. Excellent. Next up, we have Kirby's Pinball Land versus Mario Party 4. Kirby's Pinball Land is an early Game Boy entry for the Kirby series. It's one that I grew up with and I have a fondness for. It's probably still my favorite like mascot pinball game, which, you know, may not be saying a lot given the history of mascot pinball games that we've done on the channel. But when we played it for the Dreamy Let's Play, it was a fucking nightmare. Same goes for the Nightmare streams that we did. It was not great for that either, but it was fun. I had a good time, even when I wasn't having a good time, if that makes any sense. And then on the flip side, we have Mario Party 4, which is one that we've covered a bunch of times for Mario Party Madness. This one seems to have a bunch of like really really out there like matchups with folks. Like, so for one, this is, I think, the game where we mostly have the Legion of Doom, which is myself, MMG Mike, Matt Bigfat, and Zach Pack all in a team together. But I've also had games with like Cotrello from Con Compendium, Pierre from Designing For, Mario Kart Gamer Dude, Edward Saba. Oh God, there's others, Mankalore. There's been a whole bunch of folks that I've specifically played games with in Mario Party 4, which has been kind of a fun experience getting to interact with all these folks that I hadn't really interacted with before. Quite a few games in there though. If you're ever bored, I have a Mario Party Madness playlist that is all of these games, and most of them are a blast. There's been maybe one or two duds, but most of them are, generally speaking, pretty awesome games. But yeah, so Kirby's Pinball Land versus Mario Party 4. Then after that, we have Sonic Forces versus Cult of the Lamb. So Sonic Forces is a game that came out, I think, 2017 for the, what would that have been, 25th at the time anniversary of the Sonic franchise. This time around, they're really not doing much. That's a bummer, but yeah, so this was a game that we did not like. This was one, I want to say that like John was in on this one. CJ might have been in for a bunch of this too. Probably Ben, maybe even Dustin for a little while. But this was one we did not like. And we kind of made that known very early. The writing was weird. The levels were not very impressive. The mechanics were kind of half-baked. And some of the beats just came off really strange. uh, the whole like, oh, Sonic's losing his mind in prison. Tails just lost it, and then oh, Eggman Empire took over everything, and also. Oh no! The Sonic and the Avatar the Avatar character have fallen into the void. Oh, they're back, and like everyone treats it as like, "Whoa, you're back!" You know, like they were gone for seconds, man. Weird game. And then on the other side of things, we have Cult of the Lamb, which has been streamed twice on the channel, in hilariously different ways, I would say. Dave streamed it at one point. And I think he streamed it over the course. I think he did literally like 3 streams. Did the whole game in about 3 streams. And then Felice has been streaming it for like 2 years now. They are... So on YouTube, there's like 30 some odd streams, I think. Felice has streamed, I think, 60 or 70 times now for Cult of the Lamb. And they have... plenty of room to go, especially now with the Winterhaven. That can't be right. I forget the name of it, but there are Woolhaven expansion that came out. I mean, it's been a little while now, but there's only been a few streams that Felice has done since then. But it's been quite the journey on that side of things. Felice has been on a mission to essentially just max out their cult. See how many people they can get, animals they can get into the cult until the game just stops working. So, highly recommend checking that out. Sonic Forces versus Cult of the Lamb. Then next up after that, we have Mega Man Battle Network 4 Red Sun versus Zone of the Enders, the second runner Mars. I assume is how that is pronounced. So Zone of the Enders, sorry, not Zone of the Enders. We're going to do that one first. Mega Man Battle Network 4 Red Sun. This is where the wheels started to come off a little bit for Battle Network on the channel. We got through the first game reasonably fine. It was a slow go, and there wasn't a lot of story because of the way so if you're not familiar, the game has a slightly randomly generated series of fights that you have across a series of 3 tournaments. And it's not fully random. It's the first time you do it, it's essentially random. The second, but the thing is, once you beat the game, you don't get a post game. There's no post game for you. What you have to do is you have to replay the game. When you go to the title screen, it'll give you an option to start game 2, and you play the second game, and you will mostly have new fights in these tournaments, and then you beat the game, and you still can't do the post game. So you do start game 3, and now you'll get some new fights in the tournament. You will essentially get all of the remaining fights that you haven't done that give you transformations in the game. And by the end of the 3rd game, you will have fought every character that can give you a transformation for Mega Man. Only then can you play the post game. So we had to play this game 3 fucking times along with the post game in order to clear it. And people were dropping out left and right on this one. I don't blame them. I know Ashley was a guest for a little while. Our friend Ashley, a friend of Ben's. Ben's sister was even on there for a little while too. This was a weird one, just structurally. And then on the other side, we have Zone of the Enders, the second runner Mars, which is another one-off that Dave streamed. He did this, I think, literally as a direct follow-up to the Zone of the Enders HD edition, or definitive edition. I forget the name of the subtitle of the first one. But same style of game, kind of a 3D mech shooter type thing with some RPG elements and the like in there. Very action, very space sci-fi type thing. But this was part of a period of time where he was specifically doing like one-off streams. Did I just pop out the mic? No, I didn't. Where he was doing like one-off streams of a bunch of different things. So it wasn't meant to be a long series, though. If people wanted to see more, I'm sure he'd be down for it. But yeah, so Mega Man Battle Network 4 Red Sun versus Zone of the Enders, the second runner Mars. All right, after that we have Sonic the Hedgehog's Game World versus The Ooze. So Sonic Game World is a game for the Sega Pico edutainment system for young children. This one is... I actually have kind of fond memories of this one. I was not a very young child when so I owned this growing up, my sister was very young, and this was one that my parents wound up buying. And it was fun to bring it back on the channel because it's actually kind of a not terrible game. It's a bunch of like carnival style mini games. They're all single player by design just because of how the Pico works. It's actually kind of a shame. Some of these would make great multiplayer games. I'm kind of surprised that someone hasn't essentially made a multiplayer version of a bunch of this stuff. But you have like carnival games. There's stuff like, I had the button to send, oh my God, a coconut's enemy up a coconut tree and then like do stuff. There's like skee ball, all that sort of thing. There's a maze at the end. Kind of cute stuff, honestly. There's some voice acted bits in there that are pretty terrible, but charming little game. I think we had kind of a good time with it. And then the Ooze is a game that we played for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. This one is, so the control scheme is very unique for this. So you play as a guy who has been forcibly like put into like like nuclear waste and acid barrels and stuff, and he turns into this acid ooze monster. And so you kind of slink along the ground, and you can extend tendrils to attack enemies and hit like, explosive barrels and waste barrels and stuff like that. And you're kind of just getting through and taking revenge on everybody. It took a hot second to get used to the controls, but it was kind of a fun time. And it sort of procedurally sprites out stuff on the fly. It's kind of hard to describe without having it on the screen, but like if you attack diagonally, the little tendril of ooze that goes out there is actually navigating around stuff a little bit. You can kind of tell that it's deciding stuff as it goes, but really fascinating stuff. So yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog's Game World versus the Ooze. After that, we have Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos versus the Bear of Bad News. Sonic Chaos is the third kind of mainline Sonic game for the Game Gear. It's a fun one. I think it improves really, really well off of Sonic 1 and 2 for the Game Gear. I think we had a much better time with it. The special stages are kind of rough, but it is generally, I would say, a better game than both of those. Still pretty early days Supersonic Let's Play, and then we did it again for Sonic Weekathon 2 for Game Gear. I think we had a pretty good time with it, if memory serves. Not a lot to say on that one. The Bear of Bad News is one we did for Special Delivery. I think we got one more after this. I did check the list. So in this one, you are playing as a bear who is a doctor, maybe a surgeon, I don't know. But he is tasked with delivering a bunch of bad news to patients. Like, oh, your husband has died. Oh, your child is, and the way that you deliver this news as you are prompted by the patient is you have a number of little like micro games to help you try to give the best possible version of your answer. It's interesting because like in some of them, you just have a list of text that will say like roar, growl, grrr, and you have to like pick one. And it seems to be kind of random, I think. But then there's others where it's like there's a line of scratchy text and there's like a yellow region and a green underline spot. And if you get the claw, the bear claw, into the yellow region, you give an okay answer. If you get into the green, you get a really good answer. They're not always next to each other. If you don't, I assume you get a bad answer. Kind of a unique sort of. It's another one where the idea is delivering bad news for the delivery theme, and it's kind of WarioWare-like in like the micro games sort of way. It did all right. I mean, I think it was like number 9 or 8 ranked for Ludum Dare 53, so it did well. But yeah, so Sonic Chaos versus the Bear of Bad News. Okay, after that we have Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure versus Truxton. Sonic Pocket Adventure is such a unique little game in the way that it's essentially a cross-section of a bunch of different things for Sonic. So it combines the levels from Sonic 2, the music from Sonic 3, the sprite work of essentially, it predates it, but it's essentially the sprite work for Sonic Advance, and the like key art and general art style and vibe of Sonic Adventure. Fascinating little combination of stuff, all in the Neo Geo Pocket color. It's actually a really good game. It's quite good. It fits right at home with the Genesis games with Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble, I think. It was a lot of fun to play on there. This was one that I included for Sonic 2 Weekathon for Game Gear. So I was like, it's a handheld game, and it's one to go out on that's pretty solid, even if it doesn't quite fit the technical theme for it. And then Truxton is a game that I had heard of, but I was not familiar with directly. I had known that it had almost a mimetic status. Turns out it was featured on Classic Game Room at some point or another. But yeah, so it's a space shoot 'em up type game. There are spots where you're not necessarily in open space, where you're flying over things, and it's like a very slow sort of scroll. But it was a decently fun time. Sarah and I covered that for Sega Genesis Mini 2. One of these days, I need to make like a definitive list of like scrolling shoot 'em up games. We've done so many of them at this point that we really need to like hammer it down a little. But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure versus Truxton. Then up after that, we have Mega Man and Bass Challenger from the Future versus Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. So Mega Man and Bass Challenger from the Future. So this was a Wonder Swan title that was a sequel of sorts to Mega Man and Bass, which itself had kind of an awkward sort of history. Just double check my mic. So the game is like not amazing as a Mega Man game. It's okay, but it is better than some of the other ones we had played. And one of the most unique things about it that I thought was super cool is there's actually a pair of levels where you are instructed to rotate the Wonder Swan, and the entire game now plays vertically, sideways, for those two levels, as they become like super vertical, climby type stages. I thought that was so fucking cool. Such a neat use of the layout of all the buttons, because the layout of the buttons on the Neo Geo Pocket Color lend themselves very well to this. So very, very cool stuff. Then on the other side, we have Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, which I played as sort of a like, to sort of, I was going to say ring in, that's not really quite right, but to mourn, I guess, the loss of the 3DS eShop. What's funny was, as I was in the day or two lead up to playing this on stream, I was also quietly downloading as many Wii U titles as I could for the Ultimate Wii U, which came up much later. But yeah, for Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, the idea, if you're not familiar, is you are a baseball fan who likes baseball games, like baseball video games, and Rusty will sell you some baseball games. And when I say sell, I mean sell. It costs money to play this game. The trick of it is that you can... So Rusty's Real Deal Baseball itself is free, if I recall correctly, or was. It's not available anymore. Was free, but each of the microgames inside cost money. And the trick is you never want to just give him the money he's asking for. You need to talk him down or butter him up or give him gifts or other things, because you can get these things down to an extremely low price. I want to say the sum total of everything in the game was ultimately less than $10 if you talked him down enough. But if you didn't, it would be like a full price, like $60 type game. So you really do need to actually try to do this. I want to say that the game did something clever where if you didn't talk him down, but you did finish the game, it would actually like refund a bunch of money or something. I don't know if that's 100% true. But so this run was live streamed, and I think it was live streamed. And the heartbreaking part was we got all the way through it down to the very last thing we needed to buy. And as we went to buy it, the 3DS shop closed, which I was like, damn it. We were so close. We're not going to be able to finish the game. But it turns out that the game did prepare for a situation like this. Probably more for like if you don't have internet or something. But if you cannot connect to the eShop, the game will just give you it for free, which I thought was kind of cool. So it was a fun thing to do. I would like to go back to it at some point because there is sort of a second half to the game that we never really looked at. But yeah, it was a fun time. Mega Man and Bass Challenger from the Future versus Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. After that, we have Mega Man X7 versus Echo the Tides of Time. Mega Man X7, oh boy. So Capcom really wanted to bring Mega Man into 3D, not counting Legends, I guess. And the end result was a janky, stiff, super annoying to play mess. There's also savable Reploids throughout the levels, similar to a couple other X games. And that was a big annoying pain in the ass. It was not good. It's the game that's got, I believe it's got the one that's got Flame Hyenard, and that was painful. I don't know what else to say about it. It was not a fun experience, but maybe the series was good. It's been a long time. You would know better than I do at this point. And then on the flip side, we have Echo, The Tides of Time, a sequel to Echo the Dolphin. Plays extremely similarly. You play as a mystical sort of... How do you even describe this? You play as a dolphin, which sounds like a very basic, boring thing, except dolphins are actually aliens. And at this point, you've already quelled an alien threat. This one, so the idea is you swim around, you interact with things, you fight sea creatures that are being affected by the presence of these other aliens and things, and I think there's time travel involved. It's almost very Mario's Time Machine in a sense. You even have like an behind the back type, like almost Mode 7 thing as you're navigating through to find your way around to other levels and things. It's a bizarre time. We did it for Sega Genesis Mini 2, I believe, but yeah, so that is Mega Man X7 versus Echo the Tides of Time. Then after that, we have Kirby's Avalanche versus Escape the Backrooms. Kirby's Avalanche is another licensed Puyo Puyo game, this time on Nintendo's side of things. And again, there's not a lot to say about it by virtue of it just essentially being a Puyo Puyo game. You play as Kirby. In the story mode, you go up against King Dedede's forces the same way you go up against Robotnik's forces in Mean Bean Machine. There's a 2-player mode. It's a Puyo Puyo game. We did have fun with it. John and I had a few matches against each other and kept having trouble recording them for some reason. I really don't know what the hell was happening there, but Kirby's Avalanche, it's a fun game. It's the one that gives me all my stupid ways to indicate characters. You've got your, like, Meta Knight and Squishy, King Dedede, and all of that stuff, but Kirby's Avalanche. And then we've got Escape the Backrooms, one that, Jesus, who played this? It was myself, CJ, Sanchez, and Dave, I believe. And we played this a few years ago when it was still in beta, essentially. And we played all the way to the end of what was available. It was man, it was kind of scary, kind of not. It was a little bit janky at times. The good news is the game has been completed since then, and we've been playing that also. The VODs for the new run are not up yet because I'm doing something a little bit different with the edit for that I hope will be better. We're gonna see how that goes. But it's been pretty good. It's fun to do multiplayer stuff along the lines of this. I think that's a fun use of doing multiplayer. But yeah, so Kirby's Avalanche versus Escape the Backrooms. All right, then we have Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island versus Desert Strike Return to the Gulf. I read the title 4 times before trying to say it here, and I still got it wrong. Yoshi's Island. This one we played a bunch of times. We played it, I think, briefly for a Super NES Classic Edition, probably. It turned up for the games. I think it was our downhill skiing or alpine skiing event for the second games. We then also had the special delivery handle like eggs stream, which was originally meant to be me playing a bunch of Yoshi's Island games, and then I think I only played the original Yoshi's Island because it took the full length of time we were planning to stream for. Always a fan of Yoshi's Island. It's one of the most unique and interesting art styles that I've seen for the Super Nintendo. Just kind of a scratchy kind of outline to things, very colored pencil and marker sort of aesthetic for a bunch of it. It's very, very cool to see. I really wish more games experimented with their art styles. It's something that really jumped out at me for Sonic and the Fallen Star as well. Just stuff that's very non-standard always, is fun to me. So then on the other side we have Desert Strike Return to the Gulf, which was a Sega Genesis Mini 2 title and was a weird little You play as a helicopter on a military mission, and your map is not very helpful, and your aiming is not very good. It was so stiff and weird. Sarah and I were on that one, and it was a rough time, is all I can really say about that. It's a one-off video, so you can definitely go and check this out. But I will say, maybe not our best work, maybe not Sega's best work either. So yeah, Yoshi's Island versus Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf. Up after that, we have Pokemon Moon versus Mega Man's Christmas Carol 2. So Pokemon Moon was my entry in the Sun versus Moon padlock that I did. So John played Sun, I played Moon. I already kind of covered most of the important stuff for Sun and Moon on that side of things. There's not much more to say here. Slow pacing. It was kind of a rough time. I had an okay time with it, but I was definitely kind of exhausted by it at the end. And then I lost, and I had lost before we even got to the end of it. So that was kind of a foregone conclusion. But I did survive the Kukui fight with one Pokemon, Whelp, the Slowbro. Barely got through that, but yeah. So Pokemon Moon. We also have Mega Man's Christmas Carol 2, so the sequel to Mega Man's Christmas Carol, which I don't think we've talked about. We'll talk about at some point. Oh my God, soon. Sorry, I keep trying to switch hands, and then I put my hand in front of the camera. Sorry. So Mega Man's Christmas Carol 2, this one's a little more directly based off A Christmas Carol. Two of the bosses in this are Scrooge and Tiny Tim, and two of them are Want and Ignorance. It's basically a set of Christmas-themed Mega Man fan games, essentially. They're just boss battles. There's nothing else to them. Fun little things, some creative fights, some that are a little bit bastardy, but we did it as our Christmas special in, I want to say, 2022. It's a one-off video. If you haven't seen it, it's very easy to go and check that out. So yeah, Pokemon Moon versus Mega Man's Christmas Carol 2. Then after that, we have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild versus Splatterhouse 2. So Breath of the Wild, we already talked about Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild was the game that kind of set all that up. I think we were just in awe of this game when we played it. It was so goddamn huge. And even if it didn't feel like a Zelda game in all of the ways that we necessarily wanted it to, it was still amazing to get a huge open world Zelda game like that. I think nowadays we're kind of done with it a little bit. I'm really hoping that Ocarina Remake and whatever comes after are going to keep things a little tighter to the chest. But it was a damn good time. Ben and Lindsay were there for pretty much the entire thing. Other folks were in and out throughout the whole experience. It was a really wild time. And then Splatterhouse 2 is one we did for the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And this one you play as, I forget the character's name, but he's like this huge buff dude in like a Jason mask. And he's punching out and kicking and stabbing occasionally enemies. It's very scary theme. Like, not like scary like Resident Evil, but like spooky Halloween type monsters and things. Like, it reminded me of... oh no, I was going to say Monster Madness. That's not the name of it. There's an NES game where you fight a bunch of Halloween-y type things as well. Oh, I can't remember the name of the game. It's fine. But it's a little awkward. The controls are not super responsive, so there's times where you're trying to turn around, it doesn't really work, and you're enormous on the screen, so your hitbox is giant too. It was a little bit tricky to kind of get used to. An amazing time with it, but anywho, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild versus Splatterhouse 2. All right, after that we have Super Adventure Rockman versus Rain on Their Parade. Super Adventure Rockman is a... oh boy, how to even describe this one? It's a fusion of a couple different things. It's sort of a branching path thing a little bit. It's an FMV game. It's also entirely in Japanese. There was not an English version made, sadly. You choose options in order to progress. There's also like some quick time events a la... I was going to say Dragon's Quest. That's not quite right. Dragon's Lair, the like Laserdisc type version of the game. There's also segments where it's from a first-person view and you're like shooting at things in like a duck hunt sort of way. just such an interesting kind of blend of stuff going on there. We had an interesting time with it. We had fun trying to get through it, but it was a lot. It was like 3 discs. It really took us a while to deal with that. Rain on Their Parade, is the last special delivery game. This one you play as an adorable rain cloud, and you are trying to water crops, but not get people wet if you can avoid it. You're getting shot at by scarecrows and things, and it's a fun little like side-scrolling. It's sort of a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. It's kind of got elements of that along with other things, but it's adorable. I think this is the one that took second place at Ludum Dare 53. And yeah, we played it for a little while. I think Peter might have been in charge for this one. Yeah, we didn't play it for super long, but the link is in the description. The link is in the attachment if you are trying to check that out. But yeah, so Super Adventure Rockman versus Rain on Their Parade. All right, after that we have Super Ghouls and Ghosts versus Outrun. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's one of those games you play as Arthur. Ghouls and Ghosts, Ghosts and Goblins, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I think there was a remake of the original at some point pretty recently too. But this was so interesting. So 'cause I gotta stop saying that fucking word. This one had myself and Sarah and John, as well as I think Sanchez playing. I think it might have been Sanchez playing. And it's just a tough goddamn game. It's a really hard. That one in Castlevania, for some reason, the two spooky games of the era were just very difficult to actually get through. But yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. It was this is part of the Super NES Classic Edition. As we're now dipping more and more into that, you're going to see more, I think, Super NES Classic Edition enter in the next heat, now that Sega Genesis Mini 2 is more or less done. But speaking of which, Outrun for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. We already talked about Outrunners, which I think was the sequel. In this one, it's you and your lady friend, and you're driving down roads, and you're trying to beat the clock as you make your branching path out to your destination. Pretty rudimentary stuff, if I'm being really honest. There's not like a ton happening there, but it's an okay enough game. It's kind of simple, though. Not a lot to say on either of these. So Super Ghouls and Ghosts versus Outrun. Up after that, we have Tales and the Music Maker versus Hi-Fi Rush. We got a music battle going here. So Tales and the Music Maker is another Sega Pico game. It's one where you play as Tails in a number of music-themed mini-games. This one is much more educationally driven than Sonic Game World. I would say it's also targeting a slightly younger demographic. This one was a little more on the boring side, if I'm being honest. We didn't get as much mileage out of this, I don't think. Though this also had an MS Paint type thing at the end, and we dicked around with that for a while. I don't know. It wasn't a very impressive game. I don't think we weren't really feeling it as much, I would say. Hi-Fi Rush is one that Dave streamed. 3 streams a couple years back. Action beat 'em up-y kind of music themed thing. There's a lot going on there. There's only 3 streams, so if you haven't seen it, you can go and check those out. But yeah, Tales of the Music Maker versus Hi-Fi Rush. I'm trying not to get tired on the way out of these, but it's tough with some of the ones that I have that I wasn't there for to be able to talk about them. But yeah. And last but not least, we have Mega Man Zero 2 versus Midnight Resistance. Mega Man Zero 2 is the one that features fighting against El Pizo, who kind of takes over the resistance movement and then kind of corrupts it from the inside. I'm trying to remember if this is the one. This one I want to say features the return of X as well. I think both 1 and 2 feature X coming back. The first game, the copy X is the final boss, so maybe not. But yeah, it's hard to describe the Zero games separately from one another because they all blur together quite a bit. I feel like Zero 2 is usually the one people find to be the best, but I can't say that for sure. Midnight Resistance is sort of to be charitable, it's kind of a Contra knockoff. We did this one for the Sega Genesis Mini 2 series. Very strange intro as we get an inner monologue that's not clear. It's an inner monologue at first. I think I played this one solo. The logo of the game is very clearly the same logo that would eventually get used by Resident Evil. So that was kind of a fascinating little thing to discover, especially since Resident Evil also has a game called Resistance. But yeah, it was kind of chunky and janky. It wasn't like an amazing thing or anything, but it's a one-off video. If you want to check it out and find out for yourself, you can go and look at that in the attachments. Mega Man Zero 2 versus Midnight Resistance. And there you have it. That is all of the games for the fourth heat of the first round of this tournament. I apologize that this took so long to put out. I've been jet lagged like crazy. I've been trying to record this all over the place and haven't been able to. I've been doing it in chunks. It's been kind of a mess. The next one is I'm recording while I'm briefly at home in between all of my trips before I disappear for another 2 weeks. So that's going to be a whole thing. But things will be getting back to normal soon, I promise. If you haven't voted yet and you didn't vote during this, head to challenge.com/grand_champion. Grand_champion_2 in order to place your votes for the 64 matches in Heat 4 as well as the 4 ties from Heat 3. If you also haven't done already, you want to head to challenge.com/grand_champion_3 to place your predictions for the third bracket, as well as the fourth. Those have been open this whole time to put predictions in. If you haven't done them, get over there and do them. You don't want to be left out. We got prizes for the top 4 slots, the top 4 prediction brackets across all of this. So get over there and do that. Voting for this will end on Friday, July 17th. How'd you like that cut? And a bunch of folks have already voted. A lot of people tend to vote on the second heat of a bracket at the same time as the first one. That's fine. But if you haven't voted yet, get in there and vote on those, and we'll be tallying the votes next Friday. At which point we'll be back to our fucking 3-week schedule like we're supposed to be. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say for this. Thank you guys for bearing with me. It's been an interesting summer. I've been overusing that word, but it's very true and accurate for this. So I'll catch you guys next time. We'll be back in the recording space. See you then. Bye-bye.